Okay. I'm Sweats.
And I'm Steve.
I used to be an average, ordinary guy. So one day a pair of magical glasses fell from the heavens and gave me the powers and rhythms of an electronic future. Now with my glasses and my cousin Steve,
I just like to be on the internet.
we're ushering in the future electronic.
Sweats.
Steve, this is the Sweats and Steve Show. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 16 of the Sweats and Steve Show. All right, what's going on? What's going on, Steve?
Are you supposed to? You're Freddy the Krueger.
I am.
Awesome.
I am Freddy Krueger on a budget. This is the there is. I do have a Freddy glove, but it's all the way up in the attic, and I'm not gonna go do that. But this is the best I could do. And the Bears aren't doing half bad, so I guess it's not that bad. That
You're
bad.
pretty good.
Yeah. So yes. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 16 of the Sweats and Steve Show. Yeah, and as promised, I am trying to make up for last week when I didn't dress up, and I hope you guys like this. What's going on, Juan? What's going on? Or Cass? What's going? Oh my God, Cass. All right. Yes. Welcome to episode number 16. We have a very special guest tonight, and we're going to be talking about something that I feel a lot of people don't know about me, and kind of like my upbringings and my history. And I think it's going to be something really interesting. I think actually you'll be very interested in this as well, Steve. And kind of as a kind of like, you're more of a Chicagoan for sure, no doubt. So like it'll kind of be interesting to see your perspective is on what Northwest Indiana is kind of like ish.
Okay.
But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you Mr. Joseph Pete. Mr. Joseph Pete, welcome to the Sweats and Steve Show. How are you feeling tonight?
Oh, pretty good. Happy to be here. Love the costume too. That's great.
Oh, thank you. I worked very hard for it, except for the glove. I had to go to steal this for my brother. This is what I'm working with.
It's not whether they're the worst 5-1 team of all time. It's whether they're the best team with a plus 12 point differential after 6 games. Of all time.
I think you could 5-1. I think is kind of equivalent to the most points they could ever score in a game. I mean, if you add them up. Yeah. We have Nick Prez in the chat. What's going on, Nick? Thanks for watching, man. Indiana Jones meets Freddy Krueger. Hey, man, I'm trying here, Nick. But Mr. Joseph Pete, kind of explain or rather introduce yourself. Who are you? And your expertise that you're going to provide for us for today's topic. If you may, Mr. Joseph Pete, please take the floor.
Oh, sure. I'm Joseph S. Pete. I'm a Northwest Indiana native. I was born in Hammond, raised in Highland. I spent a lot of my life here. I was gone for a while. I went down to IU to study. I was in the Army for 4 years, deployed to Iraq, was stationed out by Seattle. I worked as a journalist in the Indianapolis area for a few years and came back here. I've been working for the Times of Northwest Indiana. Very active in the local media scene. I write the NWI Business Ins and Outs column every Sunday about new businesses coming and going in the region. I'm often on Lakeshore Public Radio and occasionally on Lakeshore Public Television. I've edited a literary journal, like a Northwest Indiana themed, the Northwest Indiana Literary Journal, it's called. Very just active in Northwest Indiana matters. I've written 2 books, which both happened to randomly come out this year. It was not really intentional, just kind of how it played out. But I wrote Lost Hammond, Indiana, which is kind of a history of the city of Hammond and, its story, department stores, Perch Palaces, movie theaters, the Roby Speedway. It's bygone, a lot of the bygone history there that's kind of, vanished from the map, the Woodmar Mall, a lot of landmarks. And then I also wrote 100 Things to Do in Gary and Northwest Indiana Before You Die, which is published by Reedy Press out of St. Louis. It's kind of a guidebook to Northwest Indiana things to do, like the Indiana Dunes National Park, Three Floyds, Dark Lord Day, Pierogi Fest, everything down from like Fair Oaks Farms, which isn't technically part of the region, but it's kind of region adjacent to,
Right.
Calumet Fisheries in the south side of Chicago, to in Southwest Michigan, Redemax, and just kind of the full gamut of the region experience, everything from the beaches to, unique foods we have like lemon rice soup and square cut pizza, to, just the galleries, the restaurants, all the different things there are to see and do here, including some of the weirder and lesser known stuff like Shoe Corner, the Serbian truck stop in Gary that serves like allegedly the best Juicy Lucy in the Midwest, according to Food and Wine magazine. And
I need to know. I need to hear that again. What was that one?
Oh, which one?
The Juicy Lucy.
Oh yeah, there's a truck stop in Gary off the Borman Expressway called the Balkan Grill, and it specializes in Serbian burgers that are kind of stuffed full of mozzarella. It's kind of a style it's associated with Minneapolis largely, but it's like where they stuff the burger and it takes half an hour to make.
Wow.
But there's one, they do the Serbian version of it at this truck stop that kind of caters to Serbian truckers and truckers from Eastern Europe, and it's gained a lot of acclaim. It's been written up a few times in the Chicago Reader. It's been Food and Wine magazine claims it has the best Juicy Lucy in the Midwest. I'm sure the people in Minneapolis might object to that, but that's the one national magazine weighing in. But it's got really great food that I highly recommend, and it's just this totally unassuming trailer like at the edge of a truck stop.
Wow, that is a lot.
It's
My friend.
Bulk and Grill. I'm googling it right now.
Balkan Grill. Yeah, the Balkan Grill.
Okay, I'm gonna make a weekend trip there.
It's off the Grant Street exit. It's real close to the interstate. It's just easy to, if you're on your way somewhere too, if you're going to like the beach in Michigan City or the beaches in Southwest Michigan or somewhere like that, it's easy to hit up on the way or there or back, which is kind of what I was trying to do with that book. Because it's like people come to the region to go to like the Indiana Dunes National Park, Indiana Dunes State Park, Three Floyds, but a lot of people don't know like other stuff that's either here in their own backyard or other stuff they can do while they're in the area. And I'm trying to, in addition to celebrating some of the bigger, well-known stuff like the 3 Dune Challenge or Pierogi Fest, I'm trying to highlight some kind of the more obscure stuff that people might not have heard of, even if they've lived here their whole lives.
Right. And for anyone who has really kind of like doesn't have an idea of what Joseph is talking about, let me kind of like bring it back to square one. As many of you may know, as far as my artistry, my music, and like on all of my pages, I say that I'm based in Chicago, which is true because I spend half the time in Chicago. We got Mark Perez in the chat. What's going on, Mark? Thanks for stopping by, man. But the other half of time spent is in Northwest Indiana, and Chicago and Northwest Indiana have this relationship that I'm sure like goes way back, and I'm pretty sure Joseph knows way more than I do as far as like the history between the two regions. But it's a part of the general area, the Chicagoland area, if you will. That was honestly where I was raised a lot and where I grew up and where I made most of my friends. And it's a place like that. Honestly, it does kind of feel like it's home. Like it's home. Like whenever I come back from Chicago and I go through Klein and eventually I work my way like through downtown Griffith. Honestly, that's kind of like I kind of like it feels good. I don't know how to describe it really. It just kind of feels like home. In a way, and everything is so familiar with it. So, but yeah, this, the region is just like, it has a special feel to it. And I felt as though it was interesting enough and it has enough history and culture and a story behind it enough to make it the main topic for tonight's show. And as we go on through the night, Joseph, I can already tell, Joseph, you were like an encyclopedia for NWI.
Yeah. I've been around, I guess.
Oh, no doubt. Oh, Mark Perez says Shoops. Shoops is Shoops local to the region? Is there other Shoops out there, or
There are some. Oh, it's a chain. It started in Northwest Indiana. There are a few throughout the Chicago suburbs, like the south and west suburbs. I think they still have a few locations out there. But it's actually in both of my, or it's at least in the 100 Things to Do book, because I have one on Shoops versus some people some people prefer Minor Done, others Shoops, but it's this great 50s style hamburger place. They've got locations all over Northwest Indiana. From there's the one in Portage that President Obama famously visited, but there was
Really?
Crown on the campaign trail in like 2008 maybe. But it was they have them in Cedar Lake, St. John, Hammond, Highland. They're all over the place. They specialize in like the region style burger, which is this griddled burger where it's like big and meaty, and they press down the ends so the ends are very crispy.
Right.
And then it's like a huge patty. It's like the size of a hubcap. Like, if you go and you order a double, the waitress will ask you like if you've had one before. It's that big. Like, and then it's just a unique style of burger. It's kind of popular in among some of the more old school places in Northwest Indiana. But Kevin Pang, who used to write for the Chicago Tribune, he used to call himself the cheeseburger bureau chief whenever we were writing about cheeseburgers. And he would describe it as like one of the essential Chicagoland burgers that you have to try. And he always touted Choops on his best like burgers of Chicago. And it's such an iconic burger to the area. There's actually a restaurant in Chicago called The Region. It's a burger restaurant, and they strictly do like Shoop style burgers. I don't remember offhand what neighborhood it's in. We've been there a few times. They've kind of modernized it a little. Like they add jalapenos and they add like spicy sauce and things of that nature. But it's not it's basically like an homage to the traditional kind of cheeseburger. The Mickey you'd be able to get at Shoops, or the Minor Done version, like the Old English.
Yeah, we got a lot of Shoops fans in the chat. We got Grant. Shoops for the win. Absolutely. What's up, Grant? What's going on? And Mark, I know for sure, is a big Shoops fan. Steve, have you ever had Shoops before?
I have not. I have seen the Shoops franchise. I had a burger from Shake Shack earlier, so I'm feeling somewhat prepared for this conversation. But I feel like I feel like I'm behind because I can't find the bar and grill or the Bulk and Grill from Juicy, because I need a Juicy Lucy. Juicy Lucy's are some of the best things in this world. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to eat a burger tomorrow for lunch. So
burgers two times in a week, Steve.
Hey, you know what?
For the winter?
Yeah, we're bulking up for the winter. It's the pandemic.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, if you want to bulk up, I think a Shoops burger could help you out with that, Steve. Maybe when you come by one of these weekends or something, we'll have to go to Shoops. So I remember last time. Oh, shower thoughts. All right, shower thought. Go ahead.
So really quick, Joseph. Shower thoughts come on and everything stops. Vegans aren't actually vegan if they use gasoline, since it's an animal byproduct.
Say that again, Steve.
Vegans aren't actually vegan if they use gasoline, since it's an animal byproduct.
As you can tell clearly, Mr. Pete, the Steve's shower thoughts are a very popular segment here on the show. And they're kind of sprinkled all about. Oh, okay. We got a second one. Damn. All right. Go ahead.
Coming in hot. I've been showering a lot, man. I've been showering a lot. All right. A California roll is the chicken nuggets of sushi.
I'm going to steal that. I like that line.
It's all yours. It's all
Absolutely.
yours.
That's beautiful. All right. Well, but yeah, I have a good amount of questions that I want to get to asking Joseph. If you guys, the regioners in the chat, here's what I need you to do. I need you to share this out to your timelines or whatever, and also like the stream as well. Let's get more people in here and talking. But if you have your questions for Joseph, please feel free to put them in the chat. Before we get into like some of the questions that I had, let me get to Cape Cod here. He asked you, Joseph, what is your favorite book behind you there, Joseph?
Oh, too many to count. I don't do favorites because it's I've got
they're all your favorite. They're all your favorite.
Not all, but like I've got several favorites. Like I don't know, Catch
Some of them
22,
are-
Homeland, Oryx and Crake. A lot of books I just love. I never narrow it down to like one book or one film or one. You wouldn't eat, even if Shoops is great, you're not going to eat it every night. Like, you got to have, you got to mix variety.
Remember when you argued about nuggets and chicken? Yeah, I do remember, Grant. Also another quick question, Mr. Pete, nuggets or chicken strips?
Nuggets or chicken strips? It's a good question. Depends. Depends on the execution, I guess. Like Hardee's has
that.
chicken strips.
I like that a lot.
hand
The
dipped,
execution.
where
Say that again,
like,
Mr. P. I'm gonna give you the solo.
Okay, well, for instance, like Hardee's chicken strips are very are hand breaded and are very good and juicy, whereas other ones might be dry, and some places the chicken nuggets stand out, like McDonald's, I suppose, is a classic, but maybe it's not as good as was after they changed the recipe to all white meat or whatever. But like a Burger King chicken nuggets where it's like 20 for $1. There's a reason for that, and it's maybe not the best,
don't get those
shining
chicken
example
nuggets.
of chicken nuggets.
Do not get those chicken nuggets. Don't, please. I will pay you. I'll pay you not to get those chicken nuggets. Oh my god. What are they made of? Who knows? No one knows. I'm Freddy Krueger and I have nightmares about those 20 pieces for $1. That's, please don't get that. The Cherville Fun Center. The Cherville Fun Center. Have you come across that, Joseph? The Cherville Fun Center?
The Cherville Fun Center. With the Fun Center, I don't know. The amusement park that used to be at 41 and Indianapolis Boulevard, there's Jack's there now. I assume they're referring to maybe that, but I don't have that in the book explicitly, but those are obviously very popular family destinations for people. By the Omni, I used to go to the Omni gym when I was a kid. It's right next to there. I remember as a kid, it used to have a cigarette. It was a gym, but it was hilarious because they had a cigarette vending machine like right in the lobby when you walked in, and then they had a full bar serving like full beer and liquor. And a lot of people after the pickup basketball games or whatever would go and like grab a beer. But I was always I like to joke with my brothers about like, oh, it's the paragon of health because it's like you get your smokes, you get your drink, and after a good like hard workout or whatever. And like now I think it's probably like a juice bar or whatever. But I haven't been in the gym there in a couple of years. But it's I mean Cherville's known for its they have that new up your alley bowling. It's like boutique bowling, and they have live music, and they have arcade and all this. Like they really seem to, a lot of the big like family attractions seem to gravitate to. They've got that Sky Zone in that same strip mall there by the Planet Fitness. A lot of the family attractions seem to come to Cherville for.
Mark Perez is mentioning Celebration.
Oh Station. Yes. I think I still have some tickets from Celebration Station out by the Star Plaza. The late Dean White built that out there. That was another childhood, fun childhood entertainment center.
By the way, can we say a rest in peace to the Star Plaza Theater? It's so weird just seeing that empty lot across just as I drive past 30. No Star Plaza Theater. I don't know if you know this about me, Joseph, but I'm an artist. I'm a musician. I make music. I had dreams of one day performing at the Star Plaza Theater, but now dreams will never come true. I'm
at the Star Plaza Theater.
Steve, well, you got it. Well, it's a little different for you because you're not from here really, so you never really grew up here. But like that's where I graduated at, and like I looked at the stage when my brothers graduated from Maryville, and they were going across on the Star Plaza. I was like, yeah, this definitely seems like it would be like a low key like for like Joseph, back me up on this. It would be a low key just Roots homecoming show. Am I wrong?
Absolutely. It's seated around 4,000 or 5,000. When it first opened too, it was like it attracted some of the biggest names of the day, like Donna Summer, George Carlin, Bob Dylan. It attracted some like really top talent. But the thing is, the music industry kind of, as like album sales declined, it became more and more important to do these big like music festivals or stadium shows. and so it kind of became a little too small for like the top acts of today. So it's had a lot of like nostalgic acts in its last few years, like Weird Al Yankovic and things of that nature. But they actually had even some cool shows, like they had Ministry playing there back in the day. Like they even had some stuff that would kind of be more underground and it's but George Clinton, they had a lot of like legends like back when, but it's just like time kind of passed it by a little bit. But it was a true region icon. Anyone from the region would probably want it to be on the stage there. But it was it's unfortunate. It's like a hole in my heart when I drive by too, because it's I went there sparingly, but it was still so central to the entertainment entertainment in the area. And I'll never forget one thing though. I was interviewing as a journalist. I was interviewing the that bar in Maryville that's right by there, Catch 22. And he was talking about like it kind of depended on which show, like who was playing, kind of depended on how well they do that night. Because he was very adamant that he believed that Alice Cooper fans drank all their beer at home and wouldn't stop talking like after for a show. But I mean, it had everything there. They had touring Broadway, they had the symphony orchestra played its big holiday shows there. They had rock, comedy, just any genre you can think of. They had some kind of like the Oak Ridge Boys were regulars there for every Christmas. They had some traditions, but it was definitely a legendary venue for the region. And I hear too, like anytime I talk to somebody, like the Art Theater in Hobart, they want to be the next Star Plaza. The market, they're doing comedy at that market in Valparaiso where Strongbow used to be. He's talking about they want it to be like Wisecrackers, like at the Star Plaza. Like it was just central to like region life and entertainment, and it's it's sad that it's gone, but it was that would have been in the 100 Things book if it had been if it were still around, but it's just now it just kind of faded into memory, unfortunately.
All right, that's Steve. That's it right there. That's the stage we're talking about, Steve. It's not small peanuts, Steve. It's not the biggest. It's not like Wembley Stadium, but I mean it's pretty substantial, Steve. Check that out. That was the inside of the Star Plaza Theater right there.
So when I hear Star Plaza, I think of like a shopping mall. Like a shopping, like I just imagine your brothers graduating and like next to the Dairy Queen, like they're coming out. Like that's what I had thought when I saw Star Plaza, or when I heard Star Plaza. So please forgive me for my ignorance. This looks like a nice place.
Mark Perez says you just don't understand.
Well, we can well, hold on. Can I get the full screen real quick?
Sure, go ahead, Steve.
We can fill a warehouse with what Mark doesn't understand. Let me tell you that much right now. Okay? So we'll keep it. It
was one of the biggest theaters too in the Chicago area after when it was first built in like the 70s. After the one at McCormick Place and the like Chicago Theater downtown, it was like right up there. But it's just like now, like the big acts now are playing like the United Center. They're not going to like like these theaters are kind of like frozen in time. Like you can still do some decent things, but it's just like there was a hotel attached to it too, where they used to have like a waterfall inside. That was also another big region thing. They used to have all these gatherings there, whether it was weddings or like Chamber of Commerce things, or anytime somebody big came into town, they talked there. But that's unfortunately gone too, and it's just all that history has just been wiped out. But it's like people have many memories.
All right, go ahead, Steve. Hit that shower thought.
It's very possible that the world's first time traveler has already died, but has not yet been born.
I really like the segment. This is great stuff.
That's beautiful.
So whenever you say something that like clicks in my head on something that I thought about in my 15-minute showers, I'll spit that right back out to you, the viewers.
That's lovely. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm sorry for interrupting, Joseph.
No, that was great.
No. Anytime. It's like Deep Thoughts by Jack Handey, or it's just great.
Out of the pocket, boom, 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 boom. Got to keep it coming.
Which actually, I want to make sure to come back to that because I know that you're saying a lot of the region stages have kind of gone or stuck in time, but the region has changed significantly, and that may change as well in the future. But I definitely want to come back to that later on. But why don't I go ahead and kind of go on to some of the questions that I had for you. So you put out 2 books, as you said. You had one that was 100 things to do in Gary and in Northwest Indiana before you die. And actually, I wonder if I can look that up like a photo of that. Let's see. 100 things to do in. Let's see. Maybe I'll have to turn it over. Okay, here we go. I'll put that on the screen so people can see. All right, this book right here. I guess maybe before we could kind of go from book to book. Before we what's going on to Retro? Retro is in the chat. What's going on, man? It's good to see you here, man. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it.
Retro?
Retro is a friend of mine. We're probably gonna be doing a collaboration song in the future. He kind of games as well, kind of similar to me. So yeah, shout out to Retro. Thank you for joining, man. But yes, your book right here, 100 Things to Do in Gary and Northwest Indiana Before You Die. I guess, yeah, what I was going to say before was maybe we'll just go from book to book and kind of break down the process as far as like how you came to write it, what was some of the processes that and everything that went into it. But to kind of narrow it down, and to my first question was, okay, all right, I guess we're hitting shower thought first.
Joseph, I want you to write this in one of your books because this is book worthy. Is it Joseph or Joe? What do you prefer?
I generally prefer Joseph, but I don't care that much, to be honest.
Okay, we'll call you Joseph. I got you. If you find no solution to an issue, it's probably not an issue to be solved, but rather a truth to be accepted.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
that's beautiful, Steve.
I was holding that one. I was holding that one.
That's beautiful, absolutely. But let's see. So yeah, I guess the first question was, well, which book came first? Or well, you said that they came out the same relative time. Okay, I remember you saying that before. So I guess my question is, what was the inspiration for writing this book right here we see before us, Mr. Joseph Peets?
Oh, this one. Well, first I'll do the timeline real quick. I ended up I wrote the Lost Hammond one over a year ago, and it just took a long time for the publisher to come out with it. And then I wrote after I signed the second book deal with this book, after I turned that one in, and then I wrote this one in about kind of 6 months, and then this one just came out a couple months after I turned it in. So the one came out in April, and this one came out in September. But they were written pretty far apart, actually. It's just I just didn't stop. I just switched to a different book after I finished the first one, and it's just the first publisher took way longer to come out with it. But this one was inspired. There was a Chicago Tribune reporter who was a Northwest Indiana native, and he had written a Native's Guide to Northwest Indiana about 20 years ago, and it was kind of the only real the most contemporary guidebook, things to do and see. And because our area kind of gets overlooked a lot, because kind of going back to what you're talking about earlier, we're kind of in the shadow of Chicago. We're kind of just part of the greater Chicagoland metropolitan area of 9.5 million people. And we're just kind of one corner of it. And then, we don't really have this is part of a series where it's 100 things to do in Chicago before you die, 100 things to do in Indianapolis before you die, 100 things to do in Cleveland before you die, and so on, St. Louis. And then Gary's in the title because the publisher likes to have a city in the title. But Northwest Indiana hasn't really had a central city for a long time. The cities in the north, they've kind of, there's a lot of stuff there still. There's a lot of vitality, but they're not central. We're more in the orbit of Chicago generally, and there's not really one dominant city. There's cool stuff to do all over the region, but it's spread all over. It's you get to downtown Griffith, there's good breweries in downtown Griffith, but there's good restaurants in Valpo, and there's good, the Chesterton area is filled with all kinds of great hiking. There's a lot of cool stuff, whether it's record stores or, art galleries or whatever, but it's kind of spread out, and it's all in all these different little communities. And so I was trying to write a book about the stuff to do all across Northwest Indiana. And it had been probably 20 years since anybody had done a book like this. And it was kind of my idea to do it more contemporary. And this was part of a series, and they publish these, they have these all over the country for every city you can think of. It's they recently came out with one for Ann Arbor and one for it's just the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. They have them all over. And I was just kind of wanting to do something, kind of a guide to what there is cool to see and do in Northwest Indiana now. Both kind of the big stuff that people have heard of, like Dark Lord Day, and then some of the just more obscure, like
Dark Lord Day.
Oh, absolutely.
What's Dark Lord Day?
That is Three Floyds in Munster. You find its beer all over Chicago. They've been around. They're one of the kind of the OGs of like the craft beer, and not just Northwest Indiana, but kind of the country. They have they're known for like very hoppy IPAs, like and APAs like Alpha King and Space Station Middle Finger, and Zombie Dust is one of their more popular. But they do these really extremely hopped beers, and they have this very like heavy metal aesthetic, and they're very like aggressive and over the top, and they've just found this huge cult following. And then every year, it's they come out with this Dark Lord beer where it's this Russian Imperial Stout that they brewed with coffee and vanilla and molasses, and it's insanely strong. It's like stronger than wine. I forget the ABV exactly, but it's very powerful. It's not the kind of it's not a lawnmower beer. It's not like lightly sipping, but it's really coveted. Like Rate Beer ranked Three Floyds like one of the top breweries the top brewery in the world like 6 times over the past couple decade and a half or so. And it's consistently ranked among the best breweries in the world. But they have this Dark Lord Day where they do this special bottle release, and you can get 4 bottles of Dark Lord, and it's the resale value is insane too. You go on eBay and it sells for like hundreds of dollars, and even they even sell empties for like $5 or so on eBay for I guess like posers who are trying to pretend that they got to try it. I'm not sure why you'd buy an empty, but it's this big event. They bring in thousands of people from all over the country. People dress up as like, Game of Thrones characters, that type of thing. They usually have a full day of music festivals, all these heavy metal bands. The owners are very into heavy metal. And then they also have like food trucks, and they do bottle exchanges. That used to be more popular in the early days of craft beer, but people will bring back before it like really took off in the last like several years and stuff. It was harder to come by, but people will bring like more obscure craft beers from, Florida or California or Portland or wherever, and they'll trade it for stuff they can't get at home, because a lot of the craft beer, like the distribution is tends to be regional. Like you don't necessarily it's more accessible now than it's ever been, but especially like in the early days, if you were into craft beer, like the only way to try something from like San Diego was to go out there and try. But now you can get like Stone at Jewel or whatever, but it's like now it's there's still like for true aficionados, they're trying to find that really coveted rare stuff. And it's one place where it's kind of this open community and you can kind of trade. But every year they do different variants where it's like they brew it and they age it in like maple syrup bottles or bourbon bottles or rum bottles or mezcal bottles or all these different, liquors. And there's all these unique varieties you can get like every year that they come out with. And it's just this big, for craft beer fans, it's definitely something, you'd want to try. It's a little on the pricey side, but it's like one of those, it's a big draw.
Yeah. I just randomly thought about asking you, Steve, because I know you're a Scotch man, but all this talk of hops, of IPAs, of craftsmanship, craftsmanly brewed brews. Are you a fan of that at all, Steve? Do you participate in that?
Why are you using the cloth right now? I don't understand.
I want to do it for emphasis. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, because I had to compensate because I had to wear my headphones and it's hard to wear with the hat on, so I had to kind of stay true to the costume a little bit. I'm trying here, Steve. I really am.
All right. Actually, I've never had beer. I only
really.
Yeah, I've never had beer. Doesn't interest me.
Oh, okay.
I know. You're kind of a bad answer for your question.
That is a very bad answer. I think there are a lot of people who are disappointed in the chat.
Really quick, I just have a question. So when you got your book deal, Joseph, how does a book deal look like? What's the process of getting a book deal? Because I feel like I could write a book, not to demean the whole thing, but
no. Almost everybody could write a book if you put the work into it. I'm sure you could.
I will. I mean, you haven't seen the show very much, obviously. I'm not. I don't think anybody wants to read.
I want to read your book.
It'd be like 3 pages of shower thoughts and then like me yelling at Mark.
You could turn the shower thoughts into a book. You could.
He could.
You just gotta be
It'd be a New York Times bestseller. It'd be a bestseller. I promise you this.
I saw a bee have a heart attack once. That'll be in the book.
No, there's tons of comedy books like that. That's that would be an idea to run with it right there. You have a lot of comedy books with that kind of format where you have a premise like that, and then you just run with it for. But basically, like I knew I wanted to do local interest books, so that kind of narrowed the publishers I was looking at. It's kind of they're different. I mean, these aren't like New York publishers. This isn't Simon Schuster or anything, but they're books that publish like focus on local interest, where it's mainly, this is obviously mainly for the Northwest Indiana Calumet region market. There's a lot of diaspora who lived here and moved on somewhere else. It's just one of those areas like Pittsburgh or whatever, where you have a lot of people who have some ties to the area but don't necessarily live there now. But like that's mainly who it's for. And then there's local interest publishers. But basically, you want to come up with a pitch. You want to come up, write down a compelling case for, what your book is going to be about, who's it going to be for, what readership you think you could generate, like, that type of thing. And then just pitch it around to different publishers. If you're going to go with like bigger, like I didn't have to do that for these, but if you're going to try for like bigger, like New York style publishers, you'd probably want to get like a literary agent, and you just do the same approach where you'd pitch it to like, you'd come up with a book pitch and maybe write like a couple of chapters and then pitch it around to different agents. And there's all kind of places you could go for listings, like Poets and Writers Magazine, Submittable, Duotrope, New Pages. There's all kinds of places. If you just Google it, you can find all kinds of helpful guides, and you just go around and you pitch it to them. And then eventually, you just got to be persistent. Eventually somebody will bite, and then you just take it from there. And, that's basically the.
We're going to get Steve. We're going to get Steve to write a book.
So, hold on. Before we do that, if I want to write a book, and I have to, by the way, my lighting sucks. I need to invest in lighting. I'm like seeing myself on this like StreamYard thing, and it's just
it's actually quite fitting.
Joseph's light looks good. My light sucks.
No, my light's terrible. I'm sorry. I should have
better than mine.
No, it's great. Steve, it's actually quite fitting for the Halloween thing. You look kind of like this dark, mysterious figure.
But I'm not going for that. I'm not trying to do that. Anyway, so before I write a book, let me just ask. You said you got to get an agent, you got to get a literary agent, and I probably have to get a suit too, right?
No,
I go to like New York. I just don't want to wear a suit. I don't want to go there and be like, "Can you buy my book?" I just don't. It doesn't seem like something. I would just sit there and be like, "Buy the fucking thing. Just buy it." Like I got bills, bro. Come on. I spent time writing this. Did you read it? Like what the hell? I would just get pissed off and be like, "I'm not doing this. I'm done." I don't want to.
You wouldn't need a suit. You'd be fine without that because there's the whole world. Like people associate book publishers with like New York, but there's a whole world of that outside of that. Like especially now, there's tons of indie presses. Like my one press is out of Charleston, South Carolina, and the other's out of St. Louis. But there's tons of indie presses all over the country, or ones that aren't part of like the big 6 or whatever. And
doesn't Amazon like have like some part like doesn't Amazon have some sort of deal with like with like independent writers that could like they could do some sort of thing? I thought there was like some sort of connection with Amazon and people being able to put out their own books. Am I wrong?
Oh yeah, Amazon also does self-publishing. They do where you can basically publish the book yourself. Some people have actually had a lot of good success with that. Like those not the Twilight. The one that was inspired by the Twilight, but the more like S&M. I forget what it's called.
No,
she turned into a movie. She started as doing like Twilight fan fiction, and she would self-publish it. And what they would do to get a lot of readers initially,
Shades of Grey. The Shades of Grey.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like they would do it as like either free or like 99 cents at the Kindle store, and then they get a like volume and build up a huge readership. And then once they had the readership, then they go to like traditional publishing or whatever. But with self-publishing, if you can get the readers that way, like, you're keeping more of the proceeds or whatever. But like with traditionally published books like this, like, you're only getting a fraction or whatever of the, right. But the difference is though that they'll do a lot of self-publishing, you have to basically do everything yourself. And with this one, They'll do
Right.
marketing, they'll get it to stores, they'll, get media coverage, things like that. There's, benefits or whatever. But with self-publishing, is also tons of people have done that, and it's grown increasingly like, a route to like, a lot of people have done that, have gone on to be successful like recently.
Wait,
Absolutely.
So 50 Shades of Grey was inspired by Twilight?
Yes,
It was.
yeah.
What?
It was originally like Twilight fan fiction.
I've
she was
never
just
seen or
really-
read. Obviously, people know I'm not like an educated man. It's very evident. But nonetheless, I know it. I never read, and I've never seen Twilight or 50 Shades of Grey. But I am married and I have a wife who has seen both of those. And when she's watching those, I'm on the iPad figuring out what's the best daily fantasy sports lineup for me to play. Okay. So I haven't directly watched it, but it was off in this direction. So how the hell do you get a 50 Shades of Grey out of Twilight? I don't understand.
Imagination. Imagination,
why-
Steve.
This is why I'm not going to write a book. I gave up on it. I'm sorry.
Anything you
I
want.
do think the Shower Thoughts, I think, has potential. I used to read a lot of the comedy books at like Barnes and Nobles and that type of thing. And there are a lot like with that where they just take the premise and then they just run with it.
Yeah.
Steve,
I
you
feel
gotta
that
run
it's
with it, Steve.
But the problem is that
It's not
I
as hard
did-
as you think it is. If you just put in the time, eventually you'll
Put
get
your
it
mind
done.
to it. Put your mind to it.
All
Absolutely.
right, I got another question. I'm sorry for dominating the questions.
Wait, but before you ask
Okay.
that, I just want to say hail and shout out to Lord Panatra is in the chat, and then Cape Cod actually says Steve only likes Scotch or whiskey when it's neat with extra ice.
I don't.
He
like-
know you. Cape Cod knows you so well.
We should get Cape Cod on the
You
on
should.
the pod, and we should tell that story. By the way.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I'll put out the link to join in a little bit. But go ahead, Steve. What's your question?
So here's my question. So I'm looking at your book. I'm interested in it. Who came up with the cover? Do you have cover a bit like who does the cover? Because as a soon to be journalist, if I unquit from it, I want to have cover freedom. I don't want anyone to tell me what to put on my cover.
They, if you work with a traditional publisher, they generally like you get final say over the cover, but they'll generally have someone design it, and you're kind of working with whatever they design. This book is both of these books are actually part of a series. Like they have these 100 Things books from everywhere from like LA to Boston to Charleston to Miami to it's Kansas City, cities all over there. It's part of a series. There's like 90 or so of the. So they kind of have a set design. Like all the covers are pretty similar. The only things that are kind of distinct with this one is that's a photo I took of the Gibson Woods, like in Hammond, where they have the flowering, the flowers in the pond there. And then so they're using the photo I provided, and then they came up with like the color scheme. But they have all these books I don't know if I have one handy to show, but like they have all of them pretty much more or less look like that, whether it's 100 Things to Do in Dallas or 100 Things to Do. It's all just variations, just different colors and different photos.
Okay, yeah. So
with the book that's not in the series, they would commission like an artist, and they would do like a they design a couple ideas and present those to you, and then you'd be able to like choose kind of what you like and offer feedback. And you definitely have a lot of input and say in it and have the final say, but it's a collaborative process where they have their they have people who that's their job is they just design book covers.
So do you ever get with the other people who write the 100 Things to Do and say like in Gary, Indiana, we have cheeseburgers, and the people in LA are like, well, we have West Hollywood, and you're like, well, cheeseburgers, West Hollywood. Do you ever do anything like that? Like, do you ever have do they have like conventions? Like, one, I think it's cool. That's kind of it's a silly question, but it's a real thing in my mind. Like I would love to do that.
They do have there's kind of an email list where people share tips about readings and that type of thing, and especially now with the pandemic, it's kind of made it's not the ideal time to come out with books. It's not because normally you do like readings and signings and it just complicates like that a lot. So there's email lists where they share, but I know two of the people I went to IU with have written these books too. Ashley Petrie wrote the 100 Things to Do in Indianapolis Before You Die, and Rachel Kipp. But all of us were like IDS from the IDS, the Indiana Daily Student down there too, and she wrote the one that just came out on 100 Things to Do in Delaware Before You Die. That one's statewide. Usually it's more like a city or
well, it's Delaware. It's pretty Delaware. It's pretty small.
real quick.
I looked it up. I'm sorry, Sweats. I know I'm dominating this one.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
I'm interested. I'm all in on this one. I looked it up on Amazon, and I'm seeing, yeah, this is pretty cool. Like, you got 100 Things to Do in Omaha. You got 100 Things to Do in Nebraska. I don't understand the little bucket under the eye. I don't understand that.
Yeah, okay, because it's supposed to be a bucket list. It's supposed to be like bucket list stuff. Yeah, that's where the whole that's the kind of the. But it's there's actually several of these. This is just kind of the biggest out of the series because there's one like 111 things to do in Chicago, or 111 things you must do in Chicago. There's like 50 things you must do in Indianapolis. There are a couple different publishers that kind of do variations of the same concept. But this one I've seen the most. Like when I've traveled, I just usually see this one like everywhere. Like when you go to different museum gift shops or bookstores or that type of thing. But there are definitely other series. There's that 11 things. That one tends to focus more on like fancy photography. This one is more in kind of like just quick descriptions of different festivals and restaurants and experiences and those types of things. But there are other ones where it's kind of more like they have really lavish photography and they make it look really like like a coffee table book or something. But
so another question I have is I just stumbled across 100 Things to Do in America Before You Die.
Oh yeah.
Did anything did anything in Northwest Indiana and Gary make it on that book? Because that seems to be the alpha and the omega of all of these books.
You are correct, sir. But I think that was one of the first ones they ever came out with.
Okay.
So they don't have. It would be awesome if they did like a
part 2.
It's hard to. They probably will because they're going to run out of places eventually. So they're going to they're going to need new concepts.
The last thing I'll say before I'll stop running over this. I like this one, by the way. Is I think there should be. Can I get the full screen?
Sure, go ahead.
I think there should be 101 things to do in all of these books, and that extra one thing out there is to subscribe to the Sweat and Steve Show Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m.
That's right. I like that.
That is how a pro does it. That is how to do a pro.
That's how a pro does it.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That is seamless.
Yeah, you're on fire tonight, Steve. You're on fire.
I haven't even had any scotch yet. Big shout out to Maria AF from the Philippines. This is the first time I've seen her comment actually on the Sweats and Steve show. What's up, Maria? I hope you're doing well. Thank you for stopping by. Maria, big friend of the Sweats and Steve show, and me in general. Shout out to her. Who else we got in here? Of course, we got Lord Finatra. Real quick, guys. If you're watching this on Facebook or wherever, can we get a little bit more likes? And let's see if we can beat our record of 22 consecutive live viewers. Can we beat that record tonight? I don't know. I need your guys' help. So make sure to share this out and like it, as I said before, please. But yeah, great. This is wonderful. Another question that came to my mind when I first saw this. Have you done, did you personally have to go and do these 100 things in Gary / Northwest Indiana, Joseph?
They generally they have guidelines for books like this because it's supposed to be formatted in a particular way. There has to be food. It has to start with food and drink. It has to go to music and entertainment, sports and rec, culture and history, and then shopping and fashion. You know what I mean? They have a format, and they do encourage authors to do as much of it firsthand as possible. because they like it to kind of be written in the firsthand experience, kind of telling people what it's like to have the sand in your toes as you visit the Indiana Dunes or that type of thing. And I have done almost everything in this book. There might have been, or I can't remember now. I'd have to go through all 100 things, but I've probably done everything in this book. Some of it I do more frequently than other things. Like I probably eat Choops and square cut pizza more often.
Yeah.
And I've done I go to the Rail Cats all the time. I visit the Lubeznik Art Center all the time. I go to Festival of the Lakes I try to go to every year. A lot of this Polish restaurants I've gone to visit the Warsaw Inn. I do a lot of this stuff regularly, but some of it I've maybe done like once or gone there for like an assignment for journalism or something. Some of it I'm much more familiar with, but pretty much everything I've either done myself or written about, to where I've interviewed the people extensively before.
Okay, nice. One thing that I also thought about, because we have a friend of the show, his name is Brandon Crotty. And I actually sent this to you in the messenger when we did the episode with him. He is a paranormal investigator full time. He goes around the country and searches for the truth. My question for you, Joseph, is in your knowledge of the region of Northwest Indiana, and it kind of
like this.
What's that? What'd you say, Steve?
Cross co-mingle like this. We're gonna learn history.
It's beautiful.
We're gonna learn about what president.
Halloween. It's in the spirit of the season,
right? In the spirit of the Halloween spirit, and in this month in general. And you can make it a brief if you want, but haunted sites, haunted locations for Northwest Indiana, because there's a high possibility that Brandon, if he secures funds to make a trip, that he could come over here, and I'd love to get to see him in person. So yeah, my question for you is, haunted locations, haunted sightings, are they in the book? Or if not in the book, do you know of any specific that are very popular here in the region?
They're not in the book, but I can name a couple. I know I listened to that episode as Grid Show. I noticed you guys were talking about the Zach Baggins Demon House in Gary, and then I've written about that a couple times, and I've talked to the priest who did like the exorcisms, and he says, because he kind of keeps an eye on it or whatever, and he says people still make pilgrimages there to see it, even though it's been torn down.
Yes.
So you can watch that. I think it's on Prime still. The Zach Baggins, if you haven't seen it, it's where
I have seen it. It was really good.
Oh no, I was talking to the people like at home or whatever.
Oh
yeah.
yes. There's that one is one of the more notorious ones in recent years, but there have been other sites that are supposed to have been haunted. I'm trying to think. Crown Point. There's an entire book called Haunted Crown Point that I recommend, where there are different sites there. The old city hall where they have a haunted house. It could be marketing hype or whatever, but supposedly that one has had some paranormal activity. The people who run the haunted house in the old city hall down there, they like to say it's the only actually haunted house in the region. And then there is, I don't know if it's necessarily haunted, but the Decay Devils in Gary this Saturday are doing a tour of the Tolston Cemetery in Gary, and they're going to have paranormal investigators with them, and they're going to do like a mini ghost hunt and let people kind of use some of the equipment that you've seen on TV, like the boxes and whatnot. And I'm trying to think of other sites. I think there's, because we've had a share of morbid history, like Belle Guinness was a notorious serial killer in Diana of the Dunes. One is there's a lot of, it's not necessarily haunted, but like my Lost Hammond book deals with a lot of kind of grisly stuff, like at Wolf Lake, where they dumped a lot of bodies there. Al Capone had murdered some of his rivals and dumped them there. Leopold and Loeb, the thrill killers, they killed a kid from the University of Chicago just for their own amusement. They dumped the body there in Wolf Lake, which straddles Hammond and Chicago border. And then they did there was a serial killer, Andrew Uridalas, who was executed in California pretty recently. He also had dumped some of his victims out that way.
So you do have
Wow.
some grisly stuff that's happened in Northwest Indiana, and I'm trying to think of other sites that are Barker Mansion. Go ahead. We'll just briefly. Okay, Barker Mansion. It's not necessarily like haunted. I think I've heard some things, but it's in Michigan City. But they do like a candlelight Victorian tour for every Halloween, where they have people come in and they they turn out all the lights and they try it for a really spooky like experience. And then also the book does have haunted houses in there. It talks about Reaper's Realm, which is 3 floors of flights in the former Joseph Myers Botanical Garden, and it talks about the haunted that one in Lake Station that's really popular, where it's the haunted insane asylum or whatever. And both of those are big draws for people throughout like Chicagoland.
I definitely had to like look into that and definitely like pick up that. Do you know if that book is on Amazon, that Haunted Crown Point, or any of these?
Yeah. I've seen it at local bookstores and like Miles Books in Highland and other ones, but I'm pretty sure you'd be able to find it on Amazon or some of those sites, because I'm pretty sure it's still out there. I've seen it around locally, but it goes in depth. Like it's got a lot of good information in there. I've read it before, but it's just been too long for. I think I looked at it while I was researching one of these, because I tried to read as many like region books as I could.
I definitely want to pick that up, because I definitely like to research a little bit and show it to Brandon and definitely try to get him out here in some shape or form. Real quick before I wasn't sure if you're gonna say something, but I just want to shout out Kathy. What's going on, Kathy? It's good to see you here. Kathy's a super fan of ours. We love her to death here on the show. Absolutely. We got Stosh in the chat. What's going on, Stosh? He says, I think there's a haunted abandoned private school near Lowell/Cedar Lake, isn't there? I don't know. Do you know anything about that, Joseph?
Oh, it's not ringing a bell, but I wouldn't.
You wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's there's
yeah, well, I'll have to do some research. Let's see. Wolf Lake sounds like a place that needs investigations. I would suggest that as well.
it's been more tame recently. Like that's one thing I was pointing out the other day. Like in Lost Hammond, it talks about all the bodies that had been dumped there because it was pretty remote at the time, even though it was supposed to be like Indiana's first state park. Well, that never actually came to fruition. But then they nowadays it's like a recreational like place, and Men's Journal has even called it the best place in the country to go windsurfing. You don't see that many people windsurfing out there, but it's you see a lot of people fishing and kayaking and so forth, and it's a lot tamer than it was like 100 years ago. But this isn't haunted per se, but it was something cool I learned about today that I'm going to be writing about soon. Because of the COVID pandemic, a lot of these haunted houses have been closing for this year. Some of the bigger, like Reaper's Realm, is closed this year and so forth. But so a lot of car washes have been turning into what they're calling tunnels of terror, where they're doing haunted houses in car washes, where they have like Freddy pops out at you, Jason, some guy with a chainsaw, whatever. But you're sitting in the car the whole time, so you're doing the social distancing too, or whatever. And there's one in Dyer that's doing that. It's for the Halloween season at night. It's turning into a haunted house, which I kind of thought was neat. Like,
wow,
it seems like a cool concept.
Yeah, it's definitely clever for sure. Did you have anything to say about that, Steve? You seem pretty amused by that idea.
No, I'm just looking over my shower thoughts and thinking, can I sprinkle one in here? But
go ahead. You don't have one yet? It's still coming.
I'll go with an oldie but a goodie.
All right, sure. Go ahead.
Shower thoughts.
Go ahead.
You can't describe the flavor of milk. That's one of my favorites.
I remember that one.
That's one of my favorites.
That is very true. And I do drink a lot of milk.
Milk tastes like milk. That's the only way you can describe it.
All right, let's see. Another question that I'd like to ask.
Can I just say something real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
You know what goes on in my household, guys, is I walk around with a notepad, and I'll literally just like think of like random things in the shower. So I'll like take a notepad. So my dear sweet wife, when I'm in the shower taking a notepad, I'll just start yelling, Fiona. And she'll be like, I am not coming in there and writing a shower thought for you. I'm like, but it's really good. So like sometimes like that's what's going on sometimes in my household. And like the other day, literally, like the other day, my son, he had my notepad and he did something with it, and I had this wonderful thought, and I can't put it in my phone or anything. So like I have to write it down. I don't know why. I get so I'm not like a particular man, Joseph, but I get so like I need to write it down. It needs to be in there. And he's running around, and I'm just like getting so mad because I lost a shower thought. But then I take those shower thoughts and I put them on my computer. So I have like 60 shower thoughts that are just kind of here. And I typically delete them afterwards. But like I leave the ones that I really, really like because I don't know, I'm kind of particular sometimes. So is it like that with you when you're writing things, Joseph? Like what's your writing process? You see how I got there?
Segue. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, that was masterful. But I was going to suggest I think they do. I think they do those survivalist things. I think they make like notebooks that are waterproof, like notebooks and pens. Like like they have the astronaut pens where you can write upside down. And I think they have like a waterproof version that you might like. It would probably be worth just leaving it like in the bathroom. Like you might be able to.
Steve, he's alive.
Yeah.
Well, part of the fun is annoying my wife and telling her like she's done it like 2 or 3 times. You know what I mean? 2 or 3. I know the difference between 2 and 3. I just put it through anyway. She's done it like 2 or 3 times, and now she's just like, "This is ridiculous." Like, no, I'm not doing like that's part of the fun. So now she's gonna get me that for Christmas because she's watching upstairs. By the way.
Okay.
That's wonderful. All right.
Thanks, Joseph.
Merry
Christmas to me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's gonna make a great gift.
Just throwing it out there.
But I think maybe one of the last questions I had for this particular book is out of all 100 things to do in Gary in Northwest Indiana before you die, Mr. Joseph P., what is your favorite out of all the 100?
Oh, I don't know that I can narrow it down. It's like I'm not into like favorites like that. Like
I forgot.
Yes, no, it's cool.
Eating shoops,
but it's like
eating shoops, right?
Like for instance, it was pointed out like I did the shoops and mine are done, and someone pointed out I tried to do it very objectively down the middle and not like take a side because it's like there's just a lot of great stuff. Whether it's most of this stuff I'm pretty enthusiastic about too. There's a reason it was picked because there's a lot of like stuff I had to omit, unfortunately, that I thought was like great too. But for one reason or another, like, the Gary Air show is pretty cool, but they haven't had it in a couple of years now and they don't know when it's going to be back. Like, they have a Wizard of Oz festival in Chesterton that's supposed to come back. But, stuff like that where it's like, you don't know if it's not reliable every year. There's all kinds of other ones where, different bookstores or, places I like going that just didn't necessarily make the cut, but it's I wouldn't say I necessarily have a favorite, but I like going to galleries. I like eating at restaurants. I like Punchki Day, Polish food is great. Like
love Polish food.
Greek Fest, Serb Fest, Savaki, you can't beat that stuff. There's just a lot of different experiences. It's like the wide variety too. It's like it's a lot of stuff I wish I had known about too when I was a kid. Like that was part of the reason why I came back to the region because I always felt like I didn't fully appreciate it. Like I wasn't like, because you go to the city a lot. Like you spend a lot of time in the city and doing, there's a wealth of stuff to do up there, whether eating or, so you don't necessarily appreciate like all we have here. It's just easy to spend the whole weekend in Chicago. But like the Friendship Botanical Gardens in Michigan City, it's like really nice strolls. And the, Valparaiso University has a cool jazz fest. And, there's all kinds of trails, and there's a bat company you can tour in Valparaiso where they made bats for a lot of like Major League Baseball players. And there's there's just
and mafia people probably too.
Oh yeah.
Probably.
It is probably put a good there's the Chicago outfit used to be big out here too because they were trying to escape. They were historically like they're in South Side and South suburbs. But like as the heat got more and more, they started moving out to further and further. And I think at one point, like the boss of the Chicago outfit, like many years ago, used to live all the way in Valparaiso. Like so, it was there was And there is in the Lost Heaven book, there is a story on the Syndicate in Cal City where Dory Funk, one of the famous professional wrestler, like the Funk family was raised in Hammond. And he went to go steal. They had the slots or whatever, and they figured out, him and his friend figured out the scam where they could plug the slots and then they would make money that way. And then, but you don't want to do that because if you're messing with the Syndicate, Chicago Syndicate, they're don't take kindly to people stealing from them. So the kid, he went on the run when he got in trouble. They got caught, and he took a train, went down to Florida, and then when he finally came back, the father took him in there, repaid, made him repay entirely, made him apologize, made sure it was all clear, and they wouldn't come after the kid at all. And then they went on. Dory Funk and Terry Funk went on to be two of the biggest names in wrestling. Terry Funk was a hardcore legend. Dory Funk trained the Hardy Boys. They had a big significant impact.
Yeah, that's cool. Terry Funk, absolutely. Yeah, that's amazing. I love Terry Funk. And I'm pretty sure the WWE came to the Hammond Civic Center. At some point.
They still do. It used to be more frequent, I think. They used to have a ton of boxing there and everything, and wrestling. But they've done shows there even recently. It's on their, it's not the they're not going to do a pay-per-view there or anything because it's kind of a smaller venue. But they have it back a couple times in just the last few years. They do some of their shows there.
The Civic Center. Yeah, definitely has seen its fair share of famous people for sure. We got Jeremiah in the chat. What's going on, Jeremiah? Thanks for stopping by. He says, here's a shower thought, or really more of a paradox. If Pinocchio says, my nose will grow, will it grow or not grow?
Well,
there you
here's
go,
the thing. I saw that in the chat. Here's the thing. It's not a lie if you believe it.
So you take umbrage with this paradox / shower thought, Steve? Is that what you're saying?
Umbrage. What the hell does umbrage mean?
Umbrage means you're
that literally. I mean that literally had me scratching my head. That's a real thing.
Well, basically, you have not necessarily an offense, but you're taken aback by the shower thought there.
Is it taken aback or is it taken back?
I'd say taken aback.
Taken aback?
A phrase. A turn of phrase. It's whatever you like, Steve. All right, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
The Kool-Aid Man. Hold on, my thing. Okay, never mind. The Kool-Aid Man is either the pitcher or the juice inside the pitcher. How the hell do you spell pitcher, by the way? It's Pitcher, right? That's how you spell pitcher?
Yeah,
like a pitcher?
Yeah, Pitcher.
We get a lot of use out of that word, don't we?
We do. Hey, we do a lot. We do the best way we can. Stash says Celestian Prep School in Cedar Lake. That was what I was thinking of.
Oh,
You ever hear of that?
I'm not familiar with that one. I'm not as familiar with Cedar Lake as much as other places in the region. I get out that way a little bit. Like Lemon Lake's in the book, so is the Lighthouse Restaurant.
Yeah.
But I'm not super familiar with that one. But it wouldn't surprise me. There's one thing the region has no shortage of is abandoned buildings. So, and a lot of them have really lengthy or maybe macabre histories. So it's definitely possible. Some of it I wonder too, because there was that Darren Van serial killer in Gary a couple years ago, and he was depositing bodies in abandoned buildings and in even in motels in Hammond, and it's you have to wonder about some of that stuff.
That's so rude.
Yeah. So rude. Dumping bodies in a motel.
Yeah, imagine you go to Motel 6 and you rent room 12 and nobody knows that there's a body in there. And me and you, we're renting a room in the Motel 6. I don't know why we would be doing this, but we're doing it. Okay. And we're we'd like a room for two, please. A double seater. We're twins. It's not like that. Or we're cousins. It's not like that. And we go in there and there's a body in the room and we're shocked and we have to go tell the cashier at the front. What is it? Who gives you a room at a hotel? Is it a cashier? What do they call it? Is it a bellhop?
Clerk.
Who's the
I think.
bellhop?
Clerk for
Clerk.
sure. Yeah.
You have to go tell the clerk, hey, that room's not going to work out. And they're like, well, what's so unpleasant about your stay? You're like, it's kind of a dead body in there. So
what if we get the dead body out?
We're taking it back by this.
Yeah, there you go, Steve. What does that mean? I'm scratching my head here.
Well, that's the thing, though. I bet that room is still in circulation. Like, I bet they didn't take it out of commission, and I bet you could go there now and unknowingly like rent a room that like someone was murdered in.
I was watching Unsolved Mysteries, the Netflix show. Really good show. I loved it. And one of the episodes, they were trying to figure out like a girl shot herself, and the way that she shot herself, like the gun was backwards. So they're like, well, how did this happen? And they're reconstructing the scene. And I'm thinking the whole time, imagine, because they showed the room that she killed herself. They showed the room number. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this happened 24 years ago. Imagine if you stumble across this show and you see 8250, like I stayed in room 8250 afterwards. Like, somebody died there. I can't believe that they would do this. Like, why would they give me a room that someone died in? But we have a cousin, Sweats and I have a cousin, and he used to work for Groupon. And I remember the first time I ever heard about people dying in hotels I was like 21 years old, and that I like the back of my head blew off because he told me that the amount of people that get found dead in hotels is so high. And I'm like it doesn't make sense to you until you hear it. That, yeah, people go to hotels to kill themselves, or people go to hotels to kill other people.
Yeah.
So terrible. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
You don't find that shit in Airbnb. Shout out to Airbnb.
Yeah, shout out to Airbnb. Are they today's sponsor, Steve? We haven't had a sponsor time, Steve. You know, where are we gonna get paid? Where are we gonna paid our fair share, Steve?
I guess I don't understand. Go ahead. Oh, did you freeze?
Oh, I have a shower thought, though.
Oh shit.
Let's go.
Unsolved.
Okay.
Unsolved mysteries. Shouldn't it just be mysteries?
Hey, what do you think of that one, Steve? That's pretty good.
I think I saw that on Twitter. And I'll do fairness. That's not an original. Yeah, but I'm just we like that show in our household because we like how it has everybody had amnesia in the original one. Like somehow, like it was like every other episode, someone somehow developed amnesia and couldn't remember anything.
That was a very good shower thought, because like you don't realize how redundant Unsolved is in that title until you hear it.
Yeah, you get taken aback. You're taken aback.
Taken aback. What other word you use? Umbrage. What was I going to say? Yeah, the amount of people who die in hotels, pretty alarming, kind of rude. Don't see that. Sponsors. So I guess I don't know how sponsors work, because I thought that I could just come on the internet and say, hey, we're sponsored by Quip or LaCroix. Drink it. And like all of a sudden, like there was algorithms and everyone would come, and then like money would start flowing in, and like it doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? I thought by us going to Manscaped's page, it doesn't work like that. Like they actually have to agree to sponsor you. So I kind of made a fool of myself when I sent them an invoice.
Hey man.
And then I sent like another follow up on the invoice. Like when I requested, I literally requested from their account on what is the app? There's an app on Venmo. I literally requested money on Venmo from their like official page.
Really? What'd you say?
I kept like nudging them, because it's nudging's the thing, and somebody like emailed me and said, "We don't know who you are. Please stop requesting money from us." So I got mad. I tweeted to a fake Twitter, and I like just started bashing them about their crappy.
So what's worse? Was it? Were you saying Manscaped? You're nudging?
I was nudging Manscaped. I was nudging Quip, even though we didn't shout them out.
So what's worse? Their emails back to you, or Bret Hart dissing you and telling you our money's not good enough?
I don't know if you saw the Redman cameo.
I don't think so.
But I got a cameo for Sweats. I don't know if you know this or not, but he's an artist. And I got a cameo for him, and it was awesome and it was great. But I wanted to have Bret the Hitman Hart say like, "Hey, it's me, Bret the Hitman Hart, and you're watching the Sweats and Steve show. The excellence and execution, yada yada yada." And like I kept like requesting it of him, and then he says, "Yeah, I don't want to do that." And I was just like, "Well, why the hell not?" And then I got mad at him, and I said, where he's affordable on an episode, and I guess he saw that episode, and he says, "What the hell do you mean affordable?" And I said to him, like, I didn't make the fact that you're $160 on Cameo, Bret the Hitman Hart. Like, that's not me. Like, the Rock's out here. Yeah, like that's your decision. You decide to go for that. I mean, the Rock's out here for $300 a pop. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's not my fault that you're not the Rock. You know what I mean? So you got mad. And then,
affordable isn't even that derogatory. It's
not even that. Yeah, it's more about me than it is you. So I mean, he got offended, and I fuck him. I don't know.
Oh man, the stories that we got here on the show, I love them all. Kathy says Steve is the outside the box thinker. He wonders why things are the way they are. LOL. I think it's pretty fair to say. I think Kathy's your biggest fan, Steve. I think she's gonna be Stevie. The Stevies, is that what we confirm? What your fans are called?
I don't like that name. I don't like that one.
All right. Well, whatever the name is, she's number one in that. Shout out to Kathy for sure. There's cool stuff in Kentucky too. I have no doubt, Kathy, that there is cool stuff in Kentucky. I'll have to make a trip out there sometime. I don't know. But yes, absolutely. This is wonderful. Great. So 100 things to do before you, and 100 things to do in Gary and Northwest Indiana before you die. Link is in the description if that book interests you. It'll take you to the Amazon link to purchase that. I'm gonna buy both books. I haven't got around to it yet just because I've been so busy this week, but I'm definitely gonna pick up 2 copies. I'm gonna read those through all the way through for sure. So yeah, link in the description, and I think I could go ahead and drop the link in the chat for you guys here. Let me see here. Let me copy paste that right there, and let me post it right here. Yes. So now the link is in the chat if you guys are interested in purchasing that book, authored by none other than our special guest, Joseph S. Peets, which I'm having a great time so far. Are you having a good time tonight, Joseph?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you guys are great. I'm going to definitely be watching more of the show.
Hell yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you. But yes, that book is in the chat now and also in the description. Check it out. Okay, let's go.
Cool. Another one for your next up and coming book, Joseph. The biggest trolls in history were probably the people who named Iceland and Greenland. He knows what I'm talking about. He knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. That's what we do here. Right there. Oh, right there.
There you go. It's a zinger.
Right this way. That way. My hand doesn't go that way. What the hell's wrong with my arm?
I don't know. You gotta get that checked out.
It's too late. He was already laughing. But so we do here. Entertainment.
Yeah.
There's no truth in advertising in either of those. Yeah,
Kathy says, I am just a fan of you both, period. Oh, thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that so much. So yes. So I guess what we can talk about next is your second book. I have pulled up right here. Lost Hammond, Indiana. Written by Joseph S.P. That is a beautiful cover. What is that cover? What are we looking at here?
Oh, that's the EC Minus department store, which was kind of one of the Oh, one of the big two. Well, there are more back in the day, but it was one of that and Goldblatt's are kind of the department stores that the downtown Hammond was once known for. It was once like a huge regional shopping destination. Downtown Gary was too, but to a lesser extent. But back in the days when department stores were still kind of the thing. Unfortunately, they're dying now. Back before they moved to shopping malls, it was the big thing. You get dressed up, you go downtown. You eat at a fine restaurant and go see like a movie. And they'd have these grand, opulent shopping or department stores. And Minus was kind of the homegrown one. Goldblatt's was a chain, but Minus was founded in Hammond, and they had a couple other locations. They were in Cal City too, and a few other places. But it was, it was just kind of the place where they had it, so that it was like Sears, where they had something for everybody. And it was one thing that. One little known like remnant of it, the Goldblatt's clock, the famous it still hangs in the Hammond Library. And then one trace of the EC Minus that's still around that a lot of people don't necessarily know about is they used to have this big art salon, the South Shore. It's now the South Shore Art Salon, but it started out as at Marshall Fields, which is now Macy's in downtown Chicago. But then it was like something to do with the Great Depression. I think they ended up canceling it at Marshall Fields. They weren't doing it there anymore. So Minus agreed to take it on in like the hat department. And then so all the local artists would do this big annual show at the hat department of EC Minus in downtown Hammond. And then when they formed the South Shore Arts League, which is based in Munster, and they have locations all over like Hammond, Crown Point, they do a lot of arts programming throughout Northwest Indiana. But their logo is a hat, and it's explicit reference to that the hat department in EC Minus and how it used to do these big art shows.
This this strip that we're looking at here, would this happen to be the former shopping center that's like right off of Sibley next to First Baptist Church and
yes, yeah, I think so. It's
because I previously went to was a member of the church. And like they had purchased all that property, all that former like mall area, and that's a lot of land and a lot of building. And I was and obviously they used it and converted it for whatever like Sunday school and stuff like that. But yeah, that's a lot. That's and a lot of history there too as well, no doubt. That's wow, that's crazy. But I guess kind of going more in depth into this book specifically, when you were writing this book, what was the research like? What did you have to do to find out about all this history? Like how hard was it? And like where did it take you? Where did the journey to learning about all this history, like what was it like?
Well, the this book was definitely a lot more research intensive than the 100 Things. Like the 100 Things is a lot of stuff I was already familiar with and have done firsthand. Like going to the dunes, I did that all the time as a kid, and still do. But a lot of that was just kind of like, well, making lists and like what are we going to include, what are we not going to include, in all these different categories. This one was more. I was generally familiar with stuff like Phil Schmitz, but I didn't know that they had a explosion and fire, and then it moved to location, and that some of the firefighters were hurt because shotgun shells exploded in some guy's trunk when that happened. I didn't know a lot of those like specific like details. So I had to do a ton of research for this one. I was in the Susan's, and I got to give a big shout out to them. The Susan G. Long history room in the Hammond Library downtown. They have an excellent wealth of resources. A lot of the photos in the book are from there, and also from the Calumet Regional Archives in Northwest Indiana, another place in IUN in Gary, which is another place like I did some of the research. But they have a lot of like old newspaper articles, historical artifacts. I got a lot of the newsletters from the Hammond Historical Society. It's unfortunately defunct now, but I was glad I was able to use it for research. But the Hammond High School History Class of '59 website had excellent stories, and there have been a lot of books. I think this book seems to have really struck a chord with a lot of people, and I think part of the reason is because people write about Gary all the time because it kind of had this dramatic like rise and fall, and you have a ton of history books about Gary. but just as many people came up through Hammond and everything, and it was like had the big regional downtown. Like I spoke at the Cal City Historical Society, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that's where you went to shop back in the day. That's where everyone here." We didn't really, our downtown wasn't really built up as much, and but downtown Hammond is where you went. And then so a lot of people have like fond memories of it, and a lot of I spent a lot of time there, but it just hasn't gotten all the attention, like because Gary had a lot of like the dramatic decline of a lot of buildings like the Palace Theater or the City Methodist Church, or we've all seen and so it tends to get like it has that really dramatic story arc that a lot of people gravitate to. And Hammond is the downtown Hammond isn't what it was, obviously, but it's like Hammond isn't like anywhere near that dramatic decline or anything.
Yeah.
And so it kind of gets like kind of overlooked as just a mid-sized city, and then this area too is just so balkanized. Like you have Northwest Indiana, like between Porter Lake and Porter counties and LaPorte County, you have more people than you do in like Cincinnati, Kansas City, a lot of smaller or mid-sized cities with like even professional sports teams. Like there are a lot of people live here, but the population is all divvied up in all these different cities and towns. And you don't, the industrial, a lot of the population has shifted from the industrial towns in North Lake County, kind of south or west, and it's just kind of just a really balkanized area. But with this book, I had to, I spent a lot of time in the library doing research. I spent a lot of time researching the Times archives. I read pretty much every book I could get my hands on that had anything to do with Hammond. Or one of the best ones actually wasn't even by like author. It was like they did in 1975, they did like a centennial book, which a lot of the members of the Historical Society contributed to. And it just had some great stories in there. Like it was like written by different members of the Historical Society, and they just had some really good, like vivid detail in there. But I just try to bring to life a lot of the old, like, what it was like to shop downtown or see a movie downtown, or, they had like, there was, we have the casino now, the Horseshoe Casino, but gambling's been there for forever, because there used to be like the Roby Speedway. There was like a horse track and boxing right across the state lines where Chicagoans would go down, because the gambling was banned in the city. So they would cross the state line to go gamble in Roby, which later became part of Hammond. And then, later after the governor actually sent the Indiana National Guard to like clean up because the local politicians were so corrupt at the time, like they bought everybody off. And so they just, ran this illegal operation like in the open for years and years. And the Indiana governor eventually sent in the National Guard, and then they turned it into like a racetrack. And then they had like races there, which Gene Shepard like famously wrote about, and a lot of people went on to race at the Indianapolis 500. But it was so crazy that they'd have like literally the race cars would burst through the fence in one case and onto Indianapolis Boulevard. And there was another case like they ended up shutting it down because there was a case where the tire came off, because it was like racing was a little more primitive back then. It wasn't, they didn't have these $1 million pit crews or anything like that. And a tire came off of one of the race cars and went into the stands and like killed 6 people. Like they've had really bad, really bad like wrecks and stuff. And it was, there's just a like rich, colorful, long history. And I just, it was, a lot of books, a lot of like, originally I was going to interview more people. That was my original approach, but I kind of decided as I was going about it, it just seemed more going off of previously published stuff, especially newspaper articles, seemed to be kind of more of the path I wanted to go down. Because this book is also part of a series. There was I was limited to basically like 208 pages it ended up being, but I had to cut like thousands of words because it kind of exceeded their limit. And there's only so much. Like I wanted to include stuff about churches and schools and that type of thing, and I wasn't really able to get around to it because there just wasn't the space for it. And then I also wanted to, I started doing it early on, and it was like Lost. It's about bygone institutions like the Parthenon movie theater and the Paramount movie theater and a lot of the like stuff back from the glory days. But I was doing the research in the IUN, and James Lane, a professor there, has written Steel Shavings. Like he's really documented the region really well over the last few decades, like historically. And he brought up like, he doesn't like Lost stuff because it's kind of like, he didn't use these words, but there's a tendency with like urban ruins, like people have described it as like ruins porn and that type of thing, where the people tend to fetishize like, the decline and everything. And I didn't really want to do that with this book. I didn't want to make it like, look at the old glory days and look, it's all gone now or whatever. And, Rust Belt America is decaying. Or I tried to really tie everything to the present. show how much of the city's kind of left and how it's just kind of evolved. And then because downtown Hammond isn't what it was, but like that's true of cities all over the no one's shopping at downtown department stores anymore. They're even in big cities like Chicago and Boston and places like Macy's is barely hanging on. Like it's just the shopping habits have changed. It doesn't mean that one particular place declined. It's just lifestyles change over time. And like the way people shop, like people are shopping on Amazon now. People they've gone through different iterations of how people do things. So I didn't want to present Hammond in any way of like being in like decline or everything. I tried to tie everything back to the present or just how stuff has evolved. And then some of the buildings are still there's a herb garden. Joseph Myers did this like mail order herb company where they were shipping herbs like in medicinal cures, like literally all over the world out of Hammond, and they were growing it right on the banks of the Little Cow River. And then a lot of people don't know this, but like the Reaper's Realm, that mansion there, that's where he used to run this big international, herb operation. And they had like hundreds of workers like picking and sorting through and cutting and drying herbs that they had like the Herbalist magazine they sent out all over the country. It was like Sears of like kind of like alternative health. And then, but like people all over the country like ordered from there. And eventually like they kind of, they're still operating today in Hobart. But it's like not nowhere near the scale of what it was. But then, that's like Reaper's Realm now. And that's that draws people from all over. Every Halloween season, they have like a carnival outside and there are lines like, literally down the street. It's like you have to wait for a couple hours to get in usually. And they draw people from not all across the region, but people go from all over like Chicago. It gets, reviewed when the Reader does its annual haunted house issue, that's always in there. And it's, but stuff, maybe stuff isn't necessarily used the way it was, but it's, some of these landmarks, they're still around. They've just been converted into other uses to kind of better suit, the time, I guess.
That's I like that. I like that angle that you took from it, like because that is kind of actually that's kind of the first time I've heard that term, ruin porn. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, well yeah, I definitely like when you say that. I know exactly kind of what you're talking about. A lot of one of the one of kind of the most infamous ruin porn scenes, I guess you could say, for the region is it's some I think what is it, the Palace, the like abandoned and run down the Palace Theater where the Jacksons played a show in Gary. I don't know if that's something like that.
Most people do it with like good intentions, like they're trying to celebrate the history and they're trying to photograph it. It's like not most people who do it are doing it like in appreciation, but it's like sometimes it just becomes like, oh, these are some photos for Instagram of this church that was like grand 100 years ago but is now half rubble or whatever. And you have a lot of it because a lot of people like to come in and shoot even Europeans will come in and they'll shoot a lot of the grand structures in Gary. And they'll go to like Gary and Detroit and they'll go, try to shoot some of the, like photograph as much of it as they can. Because some of it's been described as like America's Rome or whatever. And but it's like, usually it's done in like an artful and tasteful way. But it's just like where it also kind of like, there are people living there. It's not just like the city that was, it's not just like the ruins of a distant city from 100 years ago. There are people who have lives there now. Like there are people living there. There are people who, have fully realized lives, and that's part of their, landscape for better or for worse. But it's like you don't want to like reduce kind of a living, thriving thing to just like a couple relics of architecture, I guess. Kind of that's with too much of it. There's kind of a danger of it being like almost dehumanizing or whatever. But
you kind of wanted to shift the narrative, so to speak, or subvert the narrative to kind of like give a more a nuanced look at what really is, so to speak, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
That's wonderful. I like that. I guess one of the question, it's I guess not really Hammond specific, but kind of going to Gary. Obviously, like whenever we hear about especially for the outsiders, and if you're in the comments watching, and odds are you probably have heard of Gary, Indiana at some point. From your point of view, and I know this doesn't have anything to do with Hammond, but I still want to get your opinion on this.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So from your point of view, Like obviously Gary is like at like, and its heyday was like so massive. The steel yards, the steel production. I'm not sure what time period it was when that was really in its like prime. Um, but yeah, it did have someone. I guess you could maybe say, for lack of a better phrase, a fall from grace or power. But from your perspective, Joseph, a lot of bad connotations come with the name Gary, Indiana. But from your perspective, what do you see it as? What are the cons, and then what are the pros, and then kind of like what's your image? What's your image of like the city of Gary?
Well, Gary has certainly had its struggles. I mean, since between its heyday is generally considered like 1906, since the mill was built there, the Gary Works steel mill, and maybe the 70s when the steel industry started to decline, and then there was kind of like an exodus from the city, and the jobs started to dry up. But it's I've always felt the reputation there is kind of it has an excessively negative reputation that I don't think is founded in fact. Like, it does have a lot of struggles. There are a lot of abandoned buildings. The crime is not as much of an issue as it used to be because like so much of the population is left. But like, I've never gone there and felt unsafe or anything. Like, there's all kinds of, it's like, right, it's part of the 61st American National Park is there. Like, you can go to Miller Woods, you can go to the Paul Douglas Center for Education, Marquette Park. Like, there's a ton of like natural beauty you can enjoy there. It's got one of the very unique ecosystem with the dunes where it's one of the most biodiverse areas in the country. You can go hiking in Miller Woods and you can see like cactus next to pine trees. Like, it's just kind of like, oh yeah. There's a lot of cactus in the dunes areas, like small. They're not like full, like the, the Roadrunner cartoon ones or anything. They're more like toward the ground, but it's kind of cool. You're hiking. Yeah. Because it's this constant renewal because the sands are always shifting. So what happens is it'll kill a lot of the plants. But then the organic matter will support life. So you have like all kinds of crazy stuff. Like, you hike through the Miller Woods and out to the beach, and you'll see like dead trees in the middle of the beach. And it just looks like almost like this post-apocalyptic, but it's just constantly like cycling and moving and renewal. And you can see great herons, and you can see, muskrats and beavers and just all kinds of tons and tons of deer, all kinds of wildlife. And then, there's a lot of vitality and arts and, things going on in Gary. I feel its bad reputation is overinflated by people who don't, go there. And, granted, like, some parts of the city, like the Miller neighborhood is, a lot of, very active dining and, culture and those types of things. And other parts are, I've been to blocks where there's only one resident left and all the other houses are abandoned or like were burned in arsons. There are a lot of very real struggles there, but there are also a lot of good people, or they're putting in urban farms and they're, trying to address food deserts, and they're doing a lot to improve the city. And, they've been making progress. They're tearing down some of the abandoned buildings. Unfortunately, some of the ones with a lot of history, but, I feel it's always been overblown. It at one point was very dangerous during the like 80s and 90s. It was like the murder capital of the United States, but it's like, right. I'm in Gary all the time, both for work and to just go there. And I've never felt particularly unsafe or anything.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, that was, that I like that. I like that way of looking at it for sure. Steve, what are your thoughts on Gary? If you had any, like, obviously, I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, I mean, because we're all kind of like, kind of given like the hyperbole, I guess you could say, or whatever, it hits the news or whatever. But yeah, I always felt like kind of Gary, like, and I had watched this documentary that it seemed like it was produced by someone who really did care, like as if they they were a regioner and they lived there, and they kind of like documenting the history of the town and everything. So like I definitely was sensing a good intention, obviously, but I definitely feel like it it does have its problems like any other town, but like there's still some fight in it, so to speak, and like whether or not as to it could ever return to its heyday, who's to say? I mean, maybe it'll change. I mean, Amazon is like, doesn't Amazon have a big factory or warehouse in Gary, if I'm not mistaken?
Oh yeah, they have a big distribution center. Well, that's the thing though too. But it's like with downtown Hammond, like these cities will never be like what they were because lifestyles have just changed. But they can evolve into something else, and that's not necessarily like But like a lot of Gary might end up being one thing they've tried to do is turn more of it industrial, partly because of the population's been shrinking, and then people don't necessarily want to move there because of the reputation and issues with the schools and some things of those nature. But there's been a push to kind of turn more of it like industrial because it has remained still an industrial hub. A lot of people work there, but it's gotten where now a lot of people will commute in from Portage or Crown Point, or the council has been really pushing to make sure with all this the investment that's been going in there that they're actually hiring city residents and providing opportunity to them. But there is a big Amazon hub there. It's right off of 15th Street and I-65. And it's actually cool. If you're ever in the area, I just recommend at least driving by. It's just right off, it's west heading into the city, just off of the I-65, 15th Street. And it's, but it's like almost, it's, like trucks are going in and out like every second. It's just unbelievable. It's like this buzzing bee of activity. It's just almost like watching an assembly line, but with like delivery trucks going in and out. And it's remarkable both how efficient it seems to be, but also how like active it is. And I recommend the same too. If you're ever in the Indiana Harbor in East Chicago and you're ever by the, it's worth just driving around the Indiana Harbor steel mill, because just how many trucks and trains are constantly rumbling in and out of there. It's just something, just to behold. It's just like, the might of industry or whatever. But it's that's always held a draw for me because my family has long, worked in that. But it's just the Amazon facility is, whatever your thoughts on Amazon, it's just impressive, like the volume that they're doing there, because it's just,
I think Steve, you seem like and I don't know why I think this, but I feel like you get a lot of your packages from Amazon, Steve. I feel like you're a big Amazon user.
Not really.
No?
I guess my thought on Amazon is this. The only way I can describe it is in a story. Can I have the full screen?
Sure. Go ahead.
It's a story of a scorpion and a frog. And there was a scorpion and a frog, and they were sitting at the mouth of a river, and the scorpion looked to the frog and he said, "Hey, will you take me on the other side? Because I need to go over there." He says, and the frog looked at him and he says, "How do I know that you won't sting me halfway across the river?" And he said, "Because if I did, then I would die too." And the frog said, that makes sense. So he says, "All right, I'll take you, hop on." So he hopped on his back, and the scorpion is on the frog's back, and he's moving along, and then lo and behold, it's not what it sounds like, but lo and behold, the scorpion stung the frog, and the frog's body was paralyzed, and he was starting to drown, and he couldn't move anymore. And he looked the scorpion in the face, and he said, "But why?" And the scorpion looked back at the frog, and he said, "Because it's in my nature." So I just want all of our viewers to really think about that. I want all of our viewers to think about that, and I want them to, internalize that story. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. You share, especially the sharing part, because the lessons that you get here it's not only laughs, it's not only great guests, it's not only shower thoughts, it's not only sweats, it's the lessons. You know what I mean? It is the lessons that you get here that are going to propel you for success in or outside of this like box that we live in right here. That's a perfect.
Perfect dimension, 16 by
Yeah.
9.
Yeah.
All right, so basically what you're saying, lessons learned on the Sweat and Steve show, priceless. Is that what you're
That's
saying?
right. That's right.
I still have no idea what what you're trying to say for yourself there, Steve Wick, but Amazon. But I think
I think
maybe
Amazon
have
is
an
Scorpion.
yeah.
I can't say whether the scorpion or the frog because you never know what's going to happen in the future. You never know, like if you need a job and you got to go work in a warehouse or something like that. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying they're one or the other. All I'm saying is just think about it, everyone. We should get Jeff Bezos on the pod. That'd be great.
Yeah. I wonder how much his cameo is. It has to be.
Speaking of Jeff Bezos,
Oh yeah, go ahead.
if elevators hadn't been invented, all the CEOs and important people would have their offices on the first floor as a sign of status.
Damn. That's actually pretty good.
That is great.
Makes a lot of sense, Steve.
Full disclosure, I wanted to use that one tonight, so I worked it in when we started talking about Amazon.
Oh,
Kind of late. I just kind of like let it kind of get
Oh,
there.
that's beautiful. That's a beautiful. You're getting a lot better at segueing, Steve.
I am segueing like a motherfucker.
My favorite
So
Mitch
Steve-
Hedberg joke is
Oh,
my
go
favorite
ahead,
Mitch
I'm sorry.
Hedberg joke is kind of similar to that, where it's like when escalators stop working, they become stairs, or they never stop working, they just become stairs. But anyway, yeah.
That's actually that. I have a buddy, Kyle. He's also a musician as well. That's actually he loves Mitch Hedberg, and that's one of the jokes that he always brings up. Is like when I think like whenever an elevator breaks down, they say sorry for the inconvenience or something. But when an escalator breaks down, it's just stairs, and it's just say sorry.
Oh
for
yeah,
the
yeah. Oh,
inconvenience. Yeah,
I like
he
the
loves
donut
that
one.
one.
He doesn't want the receipt because he's like, we don't need to bring paper into this transaction. But you deliver his lines better. You sound like him when you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, so Steve, all this talk about Northwest Indiana, the region, Hammond, Gary, Crown Point, and pretty much the region. All right. What does it make you think? Like, what was your if any at all, Joseph call home, and how has it changed since we've started talking about this? Take
You
your
know,
time.
I respect all people. And I don't feel a reason to disrespect anyone in Northwest Indiana. I mean, they got good burgers. I can get a Juicy Lucy up there. I'm sure they got some milkshakes around there. I think they got the casino. That's nice. So
You've been, haven't you?
I've been a couple times. Yeah, if you want to find me, you could find me at the
poker
local
table.
casino. Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's nice. It's pretty cool. I think we lost. Did we get Joseph back? I think he froze.
Yeah, it just lagged out or something.
Okay.
He's back.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a nice area. I don't feel too I mean, I'm comfortable where I stand. Here's a secret about me. I rule where I stand. So Gary, Indiana, if I come to town, it's you better recognize.
We're gonna roll out the red carpet for you, Steve. You're gonna be here.
We should find a haunted place in Northwest Indiana, get Brandon out there. How fun would it be for me and you and Joseph to get like GoPros on us, and then we upload that video of like me and you just talking stupid shit.
Steve, it's gonna happen, dude. It's
Joseph
gonna happen.
telling
Man.
us like the history of it, and then Brandon's like, "There's a ghost here," and I'm just sitting there like, I can't keep up with everything going on.
I'm down.
Oh my gosh,
Mark's
that'd be
holding my
awesome.
jock strap. That'd be great.
Since you're not in the know, Joseph, Steve and Mark have a bit of a rivalry here on the show. Mark likes to get in the chat and kind of test Steve's might, if you will, and it makes for a pretty funny a live stream most of the time. but yeah, Steve, it's gonna happen, man. I would like the idea of doing also like a live Sweats and Steve show. Like we could like rent out a venue or something and like do it live on stage and just have like a live audience. Maybe when things get back to normal. But yeah, I like that idea as well. That seems pretty cool. What do you think about that, Steve?
I'd like it, but our viewers are kind of like everywhere. You know what I mean? We're really big in the Pacific North. We're really big in the Pacific Northwest. Excuse me. So I think it'd be kind of hard for us to find a centralized location that will fill it out. Maybe we could do it at my mom's house.
We're just gonna have 10, 20, 30 people crammed in at Aunt Julie's house, just in the basement. Only 5 people can sit on the couch, and that's pushing it.
Yeah, they have to rotate.
Kathy says, "OMG, our thinker's head would explode if he had that much going on around him." Yeah, she's saying that that you can handle a lot, Steve. You can handle a lot mentally.
Not really. I gapped out.
But kind of going back to the book, one question that I have for you, Joseph, is what was the most interesting fact when you were doing your research about Hammond?
There's a lot. One story I just found amusing is because they used to have a lot of like amusement parks back in the day by the Lake Michigan and Wolf Lake, and at 5 Points was this big hub. It's not really anymore, but it's still there. But like they used to have Phil Smith's was there. There were a bunch of Perch Palaces and amusement parks, and they tried to do one on Wolf Lake. They tried to do one on Wolf Lake where it was like an aqua park where because they had the largest roller coaster. Was it one of them? The largest wooden roller coaster in the Midwest at the time. But they're going to do all these like water attractions in the lake there. And then the problem is when they opened it, there are tons and tons of mosquitoes because it's hot and swampy. It's right by like Lake Michigan, and all their guests were besieged by mosquitoes. So the dude's solution to this was he went to the nearby Standard Oil refinery and he bought a couple like barrels of oil or gasoline, and he just dumped them into the lake to suppress the mosquitoes. And it was like, obviously today that would be like really illegal and, violate all kinds of EPA regulations or whatever. But it was like, that was just like, oh, well, we'll just dump some gasoline in the lake and that'll take care of it. But it ended up where the thing went out of business like really quickly. There was another line about the Hammond Beach Inn near there that I thought was pretty clever, where it was like, because it was a spot for like trysts back in the day or whatever, romantic liaisons on the beach. And it was like there were so many condoms along the beach, you could have started a tire factory. And I thought that was a good line that I came across in my my research. But there was a lot in there. There was. I mean, I was familiar with like some of the broad, like the movie theaters. Oh, another one that was a really good story was the State Theater in downtown Hammond. It was probably, everyone knows the Parthenon and the Paramount, but the State was probably the grandest of all. They built it to be like a movie theater to rival Chicago and New York, so people wouldn't have to go to the city to see these like, go into such grand movie palace. And they spent like millions of dollars at the time. They got in national magazines to come in and draw like illustrations. It was like this just completely opulent, lavish thing. And then after just a couple months, it was blown up in the middle of the night by this massive explosion that just rattled like the whole. And there was all this speculation, did a rival movie theater do it? Did like a disgruntled employee? And eventually they kind of traced it back where the owner was doing it because the theater didn't pan out. And it was like, basically like insurance fraud. But they just like, they had this busy downtown that was a central hub of life, and everybody went to Goldblatt's and everybody went to Minus. And then there's just like a massive explosion in the middle of the night and completely laid waste to the, what was one of the grandest buildings there.
Wow. That's one. That's insurance fraud for real.
Oh, what other two? The craziest one too, actually, or one of the crazier ones is like, okay, because obviously like Al Capone and John Dillinger have ties to the area. But one I only discovered through this was that Whitey Bulger, he's the famous Boston
Yes.
mob leader. He's been in tons of movies. Black Mass was about him. The Departed, it's not technically him, but it's based on him, the Jack Nicholson character. And he's like this infamous, Irish mob boss in Boston. And he actually robbed his first bank in Hammond. And that's how he got on the FBI's like radar to begin with, and how he ended up eventually becoming an informant for them. Because he came to, they were originally going to rob banks in Chicago. He was like visiting a friend. And then they went to go rob a place in, they settled on Hammond. And then the first place they tried to rob in Hammond, there was like a security guard or police car outside. So they passed on it. And then they went back like a little bit later. Or they ended up like deciding they're going to rob a lesser known bank down the street, and then he went in there double fisted, 2 handguns, and they, it was his first ever bank robbery, first ever felony, major crime, and I had never heard any. I've been in this area, I've read about this area, had never heard anything about it, but it was all in like his, there are multiple Boston Globe stories about it. It's part of his history or whatever, and it just randomly happened to be in Hammond. Oh, and there's a professional. One of the early NFL teams was in Hammond. And they had some of the early NBA teams, which I didn't know too much about. And, just there was all kinds of stuff that I just came across that I uncovered that I like, even I wasn't aware of. And I'm pretty familiar with the area.
I feel like banks that have been robbed by famous mobsters, they should really advertise that a lot more. I feel like that.
Yes.
I feel like that is a good way to get more business. There's no bigger bragging right, in my opinion, to say I used to have $134 in that bank. Okay, Whitey Bulger got me at gunpoint. I really shouldn't joke about that, because I think that getting a bank robbery is so serious, and it's not really a fun thing to poke fun of, but it's 10:30 at night, and if you're watching this,
Like,
no, seriously, think about it. Like if a bank were to like put on there like, guess who was here? Whitey Bulger. I think he's dead now. When he was alive, first bank robbery by Whitey Bulger. No, and you know what? Actually, I'm not wrong. And let me tell you, I'm not wrong. Because
you're not wrong.
Because here's the thing. I live in north side of Chicago, right? And I live on a street called Lincoln. I live near a street called Lincoln Avenue. All the way down Lincoln Avenue is the theater that John Dillinger was shot at, and shot and killed at, right? And when you take like the Chicago Mafia tour, I can't remember the name of the theater off the top of my head, but when you go to the Chicago Mafia tour, they stop you and they point to the wall and they say, "This was the bullet hole that missed John Dillinger." And you think to yourself, like, are we celebrating this? You kind of are. Like, you're kind of making money off the fact that you know where the bullet hole that missed John Dillinger. And it might even be like the bullet hole that went through John Dillinger. It might even be that. I can't remember, but I feel like,
So have you taken umbrage with this?
I'm not taking umbrage with it. I'm going to take umbrage with people who take umbrage on me. So if you take umbrage on me, I'm going to umbrage right back at you.
That's a lovely thought, Steve. That's very thought provoking.
If you come at me with the umbrage, umbrage. I'm umbraged with you right back. No, you take it. You have it.
Man. So there's umbrage.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, look, Bank in Hammond, Indiana. Don't shy away from that. Live it. Own it. Whitey Bulger's first bank robbery right here. He stood right there. And then, you put the manager there and he comes in and he shakes everyone's hand. And, well, maybe not now, but afterwards, after everything goes away with COVID, we do that. Are we getting second stimulus check, by the way?
I don't think so.
I think
so.
I don't know. I hope so. Nancy Pelosi, come on, make it happen.
Joseph, do you think we're getting a second stimulus check at all? What,
I have
50-50?
no idea. I'm not. I wouldn't be equipped to even. Yeah, I couldn't say.
I mean,
You're right about the bank, though. There's this art gallery in Indianapolis on Mass Ave called it's called the Art Bank. It was a former bank with like a huge vault, but they make a huge deal that it was once robbed by John Dillinger, and that's like big part of the lore or whatever. And there's actually a saloon near there called the Dorman Saloon or Dorman Street Saloon where he went to go drink to celebrate afterward, and that's also part of like the lore and mystique. And they play that up as much as they can to try to get people to go.
Yeah, there you go.
I went to Puerto Rico once, and I went into a sandwich shop, and in the sandwich shop, they had like a big sign, and they were like, Barack Obama sat right here.
They had arrows too.
They had like arrows like Barack Obama sat right here. And I was like, well, I want to sit there.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, how long until can I sit there? And they were like, no, that wait is 3 hours long. And the restaurant was empty.
Wow.
I was thinking to myself, like, you guys are really capitalizing on this. Good for you.
A lot of those Hyde Park restaurants still do.
Yeah. And it was like, it's like people are like, they said he ordered a Cubano too, and the Cubano was like the most expensive sandwich that was out there. And I'm just like, you guys are good for you. Good for you. You're really making this up.
Well, it really just depends on the person. And I know if something like that, if you were to own a bank, Steve, and that were to happen, there would be no shame in your game. You would play that up, and you'd be doing pretty well for yourself, Steve.
I kind of feel sad that we don't. I don't know. Do I want to feel sad about this? It's kind of weird that like the early 90s or early 1900s, whatever. I don't know if I'm saying it right. It's 10:30. Leave me alone. They had John Dillinger. Like the 70s, 80s had Whitey Bulger. The 90s had John Gotti, and like who does like 2020 have? You know what I mean? Like who's our mob boss? You know,
I don't think there's like mob bosses.
Oh,
like
there
that,
is.
dude. Honestly,
it doesn't go away.
Well, it's probably all digital, man. There's probably like a digital gangsters, man.
We should
take in
you know. We
bank
should get a mob
information
boss
and
on
stuff.
the pod. We should get a mob boss on the pod.
You know a mob boss? Joseph, do you know a mob boss that you could connect us with?
I could look into it. I think most of them are dead or like in prison.
Oh, okay.
Or ill.
What we'll have to do, Steve, is we'll have to go speak to a mob boss beyond the grave. So then we implement.
Oh yes,
we implement order Brandon Crotty, Paranormal in the Funhouse, and we get him to bring his spirit box. We go to Al Capone's grave because I know where it's at, and we'll go talk to Al Capone's spirit. Steve, what do you think about that, dude?
I know where one of Al Capone's houses was.
Okay,
where's his grave, by the way?
His grave, it's like they hide it away too to draw like less attention away from it. It's at a cemetery. Like I don't know the name of it. I forget. Is it Mount Carmel? Is or some other ways? My dad always shows me. My dad always shows me whenever we pass through there. But
Mount Carmel sounds familiar. Yeah,
something like that. But yeah, he's around. He's relatively close to you and I. So. Maybe we'll have to work that out somehow.
Is that a folklore or is it urban legend?
What, like where he's buried?
Yeah, is it like verified?
No, he's literally like it's low key, Steve. Like you won't even like recognize like that. Like, he does like you can see some of these huge like monuments, some of these huge what's the term? They have their own little mausoleum, so to speak. Like you see some of the yeah, but like he doesn't. His is just a low key marker, Al Capone, and it has some like bushes surrounding it to kind of block it off and stuff like that. I'm telling you, dude, it's like they just low. It's just on the low. He's
Oh,
here.
dude, you're right. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm
dude.
looking at it now.
I tell no lies, Steve. I wouldn't. I
I
couldn't.
get interested.
Hell yeah.
That's the other one.
Oh.
They had Al Capone in like the 30s and 40s. Like, who do we have?
I'm telling you, dude. They're all it's all online, and like it's like they're buried behind walls of VPNs and IP addresses and onion routers that you wouldn't even know who they are. They probably have like tons of aliases, dude. You know what I mean? That's that's what I think. That's what I think anyway. But I guess I think I had.
I love the idea of a paranormal mafia tour, though. You cover multiple stones with.
We're gonna have to do a lot of filming when Brandon comes down here, for sure. And actually, if you're watching this, we're gonna have Brandon back on the show next week, same time on Wednesday. And we're gonna be talking. We could probably get into paranormal stuff, but we're gonna be talking about horror in general, and kind of just because it'll be Halloween week. And so Brandon's gonna be back on the show next week, and that should be pretty good fun.
I might have a special guest for next week too.
Oh, okay. Damn, that's some strong thunder.
Maybe.
Would you mind kind of giving a little hint as to who it may possibly be, or?
I can't say who it is, but I think people would really be prepared. So I gotta say, be prepared.
Oh, I'm excited about that.
I gotta see if I can get it.
I was trying to think of one last question that I had for you regarding your book. Steve, do you have any questions about Lost Hammond at all? Because if I can't remember, I have a kind of another question I think I'll use to kind of round out the show here. Anything at all, Steve?
I will let you finish it off. I like the box cars. Are those box cars in the front?
Let's see. Those are regular cars. They're just old.
Isn't that what they used to call Isn't that what they used to call cars in the old days? Box cars.
I think they're called buggies. They're called buggies.
They're called buggies. All right.
I don't know, just regular Model Ts. Maybe the Model Ts.
The Model T.
But okay, so I guess which by the way, link in the description for Lost Hammond. If you would like to purchase it, also it goes to Amazon as well. So check that out. And I'm gonna definitely be picking up both and reading through them, kind of giving definitely a review at some point in the future once I'm done reading through them. But I guess to kind of round out the show here, and it's kind of like a more a general topic about the region itself, Joseph. But where do you see the obviously the region has changed within the last even like 5-10 years, obviously. What are those changes that you're seeing, and what are the pros, what are the cons, and what are the like challenges, and like where will the region look like in the next 10 years?
Well, I'd say the region is kind of, economically speaking, it's kind of becoming even more of a suburb of Chicago. We've had the kind of the South Shore Line that's been a commuter rail to the city for more than a century. But like a lot of the industry we've had, unfortunately, due to automation and everything, has kind of been shrinking. You know, they're employing fewer people at the steel mills, at the oil refinery, at a lot of places where, you know, a lot of people have long worked, and you're seeing them extend the South Shore Line, the South Shore Line train for south to Dyer and to Munster to, you know, help draw in more people and, you know, set up people for, you know, like office jobs in the city. You've seen a definite influx. A lot of Illinois residents, mostly from the south suburbs, have kind of been moving to the area. You're seeing a lot of that. You're seeing a lot of new, you know, there's a lot of old school places still, like, you know, the old Greek diners and all that stuff. Euro spots like the Chicago Dog kind of places like Arnie's that have been there like for forever, Armin's. But but you're starting to seeing a lot more new like restaurants where it's a lot more like contemporary cuisine or creative cuisine. You know, a lot of like, especially like Valpo dining scene has been taking off. A ton of new restaurants have been opening in Crown Point. You know, it's going to continue to grow and evolve. Those are some of the big trends right now, but it's yeah.
Yeah, pretty much the same is what I would say. Yeah, just at least a lot more people for sure. I mean, it's like Chicago loses. I don't know what the number was exactly, but a lot of Chicago residents are moving out to come over here for sure. But just because like the amount, what's the word I'm looking for, the phrase, the cost of living is going up higher. Which, by the way, Steve, comments on the cost of living in Chicago, seeing as though you do live in the north side.
I live a very lean life. I don't. We're a one car household. I ride my bike pretty much like everywhere, every chance I get. Excuse me. We shop at Whole Foods. Yeah, we have organic peppers and cucumbers.
You need those.
You know, yeah, my son drinks $6 milk, but you know, Steve's doing okay. He's doing all right, and he can afford $6 milk. So, cost of living, you know, it is what it is. I mean, you guys got to live. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna go have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich after we wrap this up. The bread is not organic, or the bread is organic. The peanut butter is organic, but the jelly isn't. So, you know, again.
And so is the push for organic, is that coming from you? Is that coming from Fiona?
It's coming from the neighborhood we live in. We're all, you know, organic is just there. All of a sudden it's there and it sounds cool. So we do it. And, yeah.
I guess living up in the north side, it'd be more strange to see non-organic anything.
Yeah. Like when I go visit, you know, my mom or my brother or something like that, and
over in Berwyn and stuff like that.
Yeah, when we go visit them and whatnot, and I go and they got like the chickens hanging out, like the dead chicken that's hanging out.
That's organic, isn't it?
Yeah, that's organic. Mexicans are just like, the beans are organic.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But here, it's like, you know, everything has to be organic. Yeah, the chicken was, the chicken's name, like.
Oh yeah, they're seal coated. They got the pressurized. They got the non-GMO.
Yeah.
That's another big one out there, Steve.
Non-GMO, yeah.
Yeah, I don't need any genetic modification going inside you, Steve. You're just perfect the way you are.
Speaking of genetic modification, sure though.
Oh, okay, hell yeah, let's go.
You drink your saliva all the time, but as soon as it leaves your mouth, it's disgusting, and you don't want to. And it's disgusting to think about drinking it. I'm seeing double right now. My contacts are going bad, so it's hard to read.
That's actually no. Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to get some of my own. Yeah, no, you're right about that.
All right.
Thinking about it, yeah, but yeah, the region is a place that's near and dear to me. I have a lot of aspirations to travel, both domestically and internationally, especially with my music and stuff like that. And honestly, I have identified myself in the past to kind of be more of like a nomad, I guess you could say, or more of a, I'm not really from or someplace. I don't really have a place that I call home specifically, but I will and must admit that the Northwest Indiana and the region as a whole is a place that holds a lot of memories and honestly I like I said before, whenever I come back from Chicago and I go down Klein and I weave my way through downtown Griffith and kind of like not exactly the scenic route necessarily, but like kind of driving to in my routes and stuff. Uh, it does feel like cozy and it feels like home and this place is just like I think I will call it my hometown or home area or whatever you may call it, no matter where I go and traverse around the world, so it's definitely a special place. It's a place that's important to me, and I'm sure of no doubt it's important to you as well, Joseph. Um, but yeah, that's what I had to say about that. And any last remarks regarding the region that you had, Joseph? Any endearments that you'd like to say about this place that
Oh,
we call?
absolutely. Yeah, no, I partly wrote these books because I just feel like the region is a very underappreciated place. Like it's made, it made the steel for like, the Picasso outside of City Hall, for the Sears Tower, for McCormick Place, for the St. Louis Arch, for, the Houston Astrodome. It contributed a lot, like to cars all over the country, all the gasoline for the Midwest. Like we made like Tide Pods, the film for Tide Pods comes from the region. If you ever had McDonald's French fries, Urschel Laboratories at Chesterton makes the machines that slice the potatoes for every McDonald's restaurant in the country.
Really?
Like the region makes a lot of stuff. It's filled with hardworking people. It's had a lot of impact. There's a lot of cultural stuff to do. I mean, a lot of people just come to visit the dunes or whatever, but there's a lot more here, and there's a rich history. And I just sneak in a quick self-serving plug. I have a book signing this Saturday from 2 to 5 at Michigan City at Tom Lounge's Record Bin, and then on October 31st, Saturday, from 2 to 5 at Byway Brewing in Hammond, right south of the Borman. And that one, they're doing a special release where the first 20 people, it'll be like they're going to release their Goldblatt's beer in connection with the Goldblatt's that's featured in Lost Hammond. And the first 20 will get like a gift certificate to be able to get a 6-pack of that. It's the beer they brewed in tribute to the old Goldblatt's department store. And then the only other one I have coming up is Dialogue Book Bar in the first Friday in Miller. I'll be doing another signing there on the first Friday of November is. But yeah, I had to sneak that in. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you didn't sneak that in. That's
awesome.
plug away. But so you said the next one that you're doing, the book signing, is this Saturday, right?
Yes, yeah, 2 to 5 at Tom Lounge's Record Bin, the record store in Michigan City. It's on Franklin Street. It's a little bit south of downtown, but if you're on the main road, you can't really miss it.
I might actually, I might have to make a trip down there because I mean, I'd like to get your signature on the books, and I'm assuming you're gonna have both the books there, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So I could just pick up the books then and get your signature while I'm down there. I think I might have to do that this weekend, Joseph.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'd love to meet you in person.
Hell yeah, man.
And if anyone out there is interested in a signed copy, Miles Books in Highland does have signed copies and they'll ship them all over the country. Their phone number, I think 219-838-8700. But I've signed I've done a couple signings there, and they have a bunch of signed books. So yeah. Some people like that.
Yeah, make sure to send me like I don't know if there's like an event for it on Facebook or anything, or like the address and the times and stuff. Make sure to send that my way because I actually do want to stop. Yeah. But yeah, what else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I guess another question. After this, we'll kind of wrap it up here. But any other books in the works? Anything else that you have on the horizons? Any creative endeavors or whatever?
Oh, I write. I write a lot for the Times, and writing short stories and poetry that are going out in like literary journals a lot. I was hoping to go to a third book, but I haven't yet. I've got a couple different ideas I'm kicking around. I'll probably work on something soon. I'll probably at least do like one more local interest book, and then maybe at that point try to do something more like broad. But I'm still trying to decide if it's like the steel industry or Lost Crown Point or Lost Valpo or Lost Indiana Harbor. Or, there's a couple of different things I've been looking at, but it's haven't started yet on the next. Been putting aside like articles and that type of thing, but I haven't like pulled the trigger on anything yet.
Right. Like outside of all the local and historical books and stuff, like any genre or whatever, like what would you like to do in your writings outside of like local and stuff?
Oh, probably novels and short story collections, like that type of thing. Just kind of like literary fiction, but that's eventually what I hope to work up to, I guess.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And like you said that you kind of submit your poetry and short stories to already, kind of like is it like a website or is it like a
it's all over. I've got like little poems and short stories out and a bunch of different, like one just came in the mail today. It's like different, like this Wildflowers, it's just different literary mags. It's all like small literary mags. Most of them are pretty obscure, so it's not like it's not worth telling people to go find like a poem.
Yeah.
The Little Creek Journal, or from Southern Appalachia State University of Pittsburgh or whatever. Like it's all like small university presses and just small like online stuff. But I just put stuff out there. I just like to write that kind of stuff. It's just the way I'm wired. I'm hardwired to just write.
Absolutely, that's wonderful.
This is my passion.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I can't wait to actually get into and read the books. I'd like to hear what you have to say and more in depth. Steve, do you have any final questions for Joseph tonight?
No, I'm just excited to mention Joseph. It was cool. One of my favorite guests so far. Thank you for coming on the show. Very very nice learning, and happy to have had this conversation with you.
Yeah, the shower thoughts. You guys, I think you guys kind of share a link.
I love the shower thoughts. Yeah, no, I'm gonna. This is added to my podcast rotation. I'm definitely.
There we go. I like it.
This is a great show. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But definitely, Steve, we gotta seriously start discussing this shower thought book. I'm not gonna let that slip from you. I mean, because you're writing anyway, Steve. You might as well like take all these shower thoughts and just put them in a book. You know what I mean?
We're gonna have to put like 16
I think
page. Yeah, we're gonna have to put like 16-page font, like.
But that's the way they're done. You do them so it's like one per page.
Oh,
like that's the way a comedy book would. Yeah, you'd have it. It would be like one per page because it would be it's got a lot of punch, like it's got a lot of forcefulness.
Yeah.
So you want to emphasize. Yeah.
Steve, I mean, you have an established, well-known author telling you that an idea of yours could work and has potential. I think you should capitalize. This is kind of like your Redman moment. This is your Redman moment.
Is this my Redman moment? Okay.
Yeah, dude. I think it is, man. I really think it is, man. And I'm gonna keep mentioning it as the time goes on, and we're gonna get a Steve book. I will be the first one to buy that book, and I want a signed copy. And it's gonna be amazing, Steve. I already see it. I can already see the future.
Buffoon thoughts. That's what it'd be called. I feel like this guest is going to happen for next week.
Oh, really?
The Halloween show. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to hear who it is. But absolutely. Mr. Joseph Pete. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. I appreciate it so much. You're wonderful.
Thank you.
Again, I can't wait to read your book. Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's been a pleasure and an honor. And thank you. As a fellow regioner, I appreciate it. I'd like to just talk about and learn more about the place that we call home. And it's been great. But yeah. Before we go, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say thank you all for watching. Links in the description to purchase and links to the Amazon pages where you can buy Joseph's book, 2 books, in the description. Check them out. I will be buying my 2 copies of those books and getting them signed. I would suggest that you guys learn about a little piece of my history, a little piece of Joseph's history. I think you might enjoy that. So yeah, link in the description to buy those books. And if that's everything, then I would like to thank you for watching again. Next week, a surprise special guest from Steve. I don't know who it is. I guess we'll figure that out later. We're also gonna have Brandon Crotty, the homie Brandon Crotty from Paranormal in the Funhouse, coming back again with another classic. Next week on Wednesday. It's gonna be great, talking all things horror. Can't wait to see you guys, entertain you guys again, have some good times, have some good laughs. But yeah, that's pretty much. Oh, and just my own plugs. So yeah, I'm running on the new schedule this week. Friday is Sweats Plays at 4 p.m. until an indiscriminate amount of time. Usually they go for about 2 hours, but I'll probably make it a little longer. And then Saturday mornings at 10, I'm doing a Sweats Plays as well. So let's see how this new schedule goes. And most importantly, new song, October 31st. I'm going to keep saying it. October 31st, new song, Spotify, YouTube, the whole works. Night of the Living Sweats. It's going to be great. I'm really proud of this one. I think you guys will enjoy it as well. But yeah, that's everything that I have coming up. And I will go ahead and end it here. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. This has been episode number 16 of the Sweats and Steve Show. Have a good night. And as always, shishikada. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Goodbye.